So, dear distinguished guests, dear participants, welcome to the second day of the Innovations United 2023, provided to you by the Startup Disrupt. I really hope if you already attended the first day, yesterday, that you enjoyed the first day, especially the party in the evening, because we all know that the networking is already crucial and a necessary part of any conference. Today we are located in the Martinitsky Palace. We are going to discuss sustainable future, and it is one of actually the fourth pivotal pillars of the conference. Sustainability is something that shifts our society, something that shifts the business and I would say the world as a whole. I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Erika Lahka, and I work at the Czech Technical University in Prague, here in the capital, and I work at the central rectorate level, developing and implementing internationalization projects, which also touch up on the topic of sustainability. I also majored from international development studies, so the topic of sustainability is very near and dear to me. And almost a decade ago, when we studied the international relations, the sustainability was almost as an insult. I don't mean it in a bad way, but our colleagues or our friends were asking us, what are you studying? What is sustainability? I think they thought we are going to live somewhere off-grid in the woods and live a green life or whatever, but that's nothing like that. And I'm very happy that sustainability is now a part of our everyday life, and it's necessary because through sustainability we can implement the policies in the governance, in the business, in politics, in education and in innovations. Today we will go through presentation of many inspiring experts in the field, for example, of the ESG, the environmental, social and the governance, because as we know, the European Commission adapted the new rules for the reporting, the sustainability reporting standards. We will also touch up on the topic of sustainable projects in developing countries, and we will also discuss clean energy and how or if it's going to affect us by the prices or the rise of the prices. So once again, welcome to the Innovations United 2023, the sustainable stage, and I would like to welcome our first guest, Dr. Ladislav Miko, who will tell us something about sustainability.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Just a question, if you are just like looking for the seats, there are plenty of free seats here, so you can use them. Okay, you are just testing if it is sufficiently interesting. I have to speak about the sustainability and its importance, and I would like to say that I would really love to know what is the alternative on the upstairs where many people went apparently. So just to know how important the sustainability is in this forum for discussion. Okay, so this is difficult because this is important as well. Anyway, my name is Ladislav Miko and I work in Czech Republic as basically expert provided by European Commission for Ministry of Environment as a secondment, and recently I have a pleasure also to work as an advisor to Czech President Mr. Pavel. In my very short speech, I have to mention something what is normally a subject of the whole course in the university. If I am going to the scientific conferences, it takes me at least like 20 to 30 minutes, and today I have 5 minutes to pass the main message. But I want just to mention that what you need to remember is that when we are speaking about the solutions, innovative solutions towards sustainability, we should not forget that the whole ecosystem is closely interacting, and every solution which we bring, which may look excellent and smart, may have consequences which are not seen at the first sight. So what I try to say is innovations are great and we need them. In sustainability particularly, because there are many unsustainable solutions now available, but we always have to think about the existence of natural processes which may be disruptive. And when I have seen the startup disruptive, it came to me as a good word to be mentioned here. So let me show you very shortly the case of our soils, which illustrates what I'm trying to explain. So let's go for the first slide. Oh, it's mine. No, okay. When we are speaking about the sustainability, we are speaking about the sustainability in the times of climate crisis. And we are trying to address the climate crisis, and sometimes we are forgetting or just taking as a separate issue that there is another big crisis in our planet, and this is the crisis of biodiversity. Biodiversity, on the other side, is an army of small creatures or bigger creatures which can help us to address our problem with climate. So we should not forget that this is something that is not taking the energy which we have to produce, which is working automatically. We just need to allow, let's say, the army of other organisms to support and help us. And for that we need to keep the conditions for them to survive. This complicated chart is basically showing how the normal ecosystem in the soil works. And I don't need to explain everything, but what I want to see is you see clearly that this is the closed circle, the normal environment, the ecosystems used to work in the circular way. This is something that we are now discussing in the industry, we are discussing in the politics. We need a circular economy. It is some 400 or 500 million years since the circularity was invented by nature. And it works all the half billion of years. So this is something what needs to be taken into account when we are coming with our solutions. And if you look at what is here, it is basically saying that the organisms living in the soil are able to use the organic matter produced by plants in order to recycle it, to allow all the material come back into the cycle as a nutrients for the plants, again for the production. But a small part of this is somehow left in the soil as a reserve for the far future. And this what is left in the soil is called humus. And this is something what is very rich in carbon. And actually this was the way how the Earth developed what we call fossil fuels today. And if you look on the two big arrows, that means that the overall amount of captured carbon dioxide is a bit bigger compared to carbon dioxide which is released by the action of the soil organisms, which means that normally functioning soil is capturing the carbon. So it is helping to address our problem. And because this is an issue which is basically working spatially everywhere in the large areas, it is very significant element. This chart is showing what was happening during the evolution of the human society. When you just look on the A is the original situation where the humans were part of the ecosystem, and the C is the present situation. The humans are taking more and more of energy developed or captured by the living systems for our own consumption. Today we are in the situation where about half of the energy produced by ecosystem is used by human society. Which means, in other words, and this is important to remember, that for all other species, every single other species, what remains is only 50% of the overall amount. So half is taken by human and half is for all other organisms, 10 million of species. This is obviously having an impact. If you look now into the soil, it is best represented in the farming. We made what is called the green revolution. We are able, thanks to fantastic inventions of the mineral fertilizers, industrial fertilizers, dramatically increase production and increase the intensity of farming. On the left map, you see the areas with highest intensity of the farming. But if you look on the map on the right side, the more green or blue the color is, the less of carbon is remaining in the soil. And it is not an accident that exactly in the areas with the highest intensity of farming, we are losing the most of the carbon which was stored in the soil. So when you look on the situation in the intensive farmland, basically the balance is changed, because we take all the organic production as much as we are able, the production, from the fields, and we are replacing the natural recycling by adding the mineral fertilizers. But mineral fertilizers don't include any energy which could be used by organisms. So they are just like dying out all the positive benefits, which is water capacity, which is soil structure, which is nutrient regime, is declining, and just to survive, the soil organisms are just like grabbing the reserve from the soil, and they start to use humus as a source of energy and release the carbon dioxide which was for the long time stored in the soil. So the amount of captured carbon dioxide is very low, but what is released is very high. And what is a consequence? And I think this is important for business to know. You may be restricted, you may be working hard on limiting the carbon emissions, because this is the present trend in order to be sustainable. But all the amounts which we save this way may be lost by this effect, that it is compensated by release from the soil because we are not caring about that. And politically, that means that you don't see the result in the actual concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So if we don't address this problem, all the efforts may be negligible or not visible, and politically in short time leading to very populist answer, which means stop that crazy thing. So I just want you to remember that we have to look on the natural systems, how they are influenced by our activities in cross sections on all areas. And this again schematic chart is just showing that we almost in every system could decide about the level where we are losing about as much as we are adding to the system, if I say it very simply. What is above is good and sustainable because it can work automatically, we don't need to pay for it anything. But if we get below that level, then we have to replace the naturally provided services by our action, which costs energy, money, material, and it is generally economic, in the large numbers, economic loss. Interestingly, in most of the systems, we don't know where is this area of balance. We only know what is really bad and what is really good, but we don't know where is what I call the status quo, carbon neutral or whatever solution. So what I try to say is, when inventing any solutions, be it in industry, in farming, in forestry, everywhere, we have to be sure that we are not getting below that level, because then whatever individually found solution will contribute to the addressing the sustainability problems. It may have a, let's say, far consequence somewhere else, which may overcompensate the positive effect which we create. And in all solutions which you are developing and implementing, you have to be aware about that, because then the result may be actually negative, even if it looks very well. And okay, I have to finish, so last sentence. There is a very good example of that. We have been promoting use of biomass for energy generation. In Slovakia, there is a very clear example when it happened that was used on the account of the biomass produced in the forests, which are actually the biodiversity important forests. And the final bill is deeply negative. We are losing biodiversity itself, but also organic carbon from the soil. So we didn't solve anything, even if it looked like conceptually proper. So my message is, don't forget about the natural systems which invented circularity and sustainable functioning 400 million years ago, and we can be inspired by that in our solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your inspiring presentation. Somehow it doesn't work. All right, I would like to welcome our next guest, but unfortunately he was not able to arrive to Prague. Mr. Stephen Tan is the SDG consultant, but he was so kind that he recorded us a video. Instead of his presence, we will now play the video. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephen Tan, and I'm a consultant working on the SDGs and development cooperation. I work with the UN, NGOs, CSOs, and member states, really focusing on how do we achieve a sustainable future. And I was invited to this conference to really contextualize this entire discussion and really pinpoint what is or how do we achieve sustainability in the context of the SDGs. So with that, I just want to talk about the SDGs for a bit, because when we talk about sustainability, most people assume that sustainability is the SDGs, which it is not. Yes, it is a part of it, but if we looked at the larger breadth of sustainable development, these are the UN discussions, we're talking about the 2030 agenda. And this agenda is predicated on the economics of the international world and looking at development cooperation, looking at how do we fund different aspects of development, from economic to social to environmental areas and investments. So what I'm trying to say is that when we talk about the SDGs, we have to take into account finance. And that is actually the heart of the SDGs. So when we talk about financing in 2015, we talked about the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, which is the means of implementation of the SDGs. And if we look back in 2015, what was the promise? When we had the SDGs and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda in 2015, we had a long list, I think it was 50 pages worth of solutions. We had harnessing more financial flows, increasing FDI in developing countries, focusing more on partner countries, donors committing to their 0.7 commitment on ODA, and improving South-South cooperation, triangular cooperation, all this wide gathering of solutions to really achieve the goals. But what have we achieved? The promise was billions to trillions. But 8 years down the line, where are we? What has happened in the last 8 years? The SDGs are increasingly becoming included in development cooperation budgets, public budgets of many countries, and there's really a big push to green their financial systems. Private investment in SDGs still remain quite low. I believe in that same time frame from 2012 to 2018, it actually went down, even after these international commitments, hence the call for more private sector action. And when I talked about billions and trillions, in the latest report of the UN Secretary General, well, we actually have not seen this at all. We have seen, $55 billion go up to $65 billion. But where are the trillions of dollars every year going to the SDGs or sustainable development? It is not there. And this is the reason why halfway through the SDGs, and this is the reason why I'm doing this context, is because we need to really focus on how do we change things, what do we do, and how are we as CSOs, NGOs, the private sector here in this conference meant to really focus on sustainability and really focus on the bigger picture. So now it brings me to my main point on what am I going to say actually for everyone in this conference. So as the day goes by, you're going to talk about electromobility, smart cities, finding innovative solutions to make things happen without hampering the environment, without increasing costs. That's fine. I appreciate that, and that is the goal of this conference. But also, I encourage everyone, I implore everyone here to really also focus on the public side of things. So when we talk about the public side of things, we talk about how governments use ODA to help developing countries. There should also be a focus on not only in the developed world, but also the developing world in the global south. Because as the COVID-19 experience really showed everyone, is that the developing countries are not very resilient to external shocks. It needs external assistance. And we cannot develop in this world, we cannot achieve the SDGs or sustainability when half the world, where most of the population is still struggling and is still being left behind. So what now? So instead of talking about best practices, I want to look at the effectiveness of the private sector, really working with not only developing countries, but also the governments in donor countries. So what can you do? What can we do? As private sector, you can work with CSOs on the ground, you can invest more in sustainable practices, you can hold your governments to account. And most of all, we can look at the private sector and think, this solution, the supposed solution, the SDGs of 2015, how can we make this more effective? So to make things clear, I'm going to divide this into 3 areas. Number 1, working with your government on development. Number 2, working with the international community on development effectiveness. And number 3, working on yourself, the private sector, working on your effectiveness through the Kampala principles. In this first area, I'm going to pull up the new AidWatch 2023 report of Concord. Concord is a federation of European NGOs across the continent working on development cooperation. So here in the spotlight is Czechia, really looking at what has it been doing so far in terms of aid and development. As you can see, it's doing pretty well, but it can do better. Aid, for instance, is increased by 0.13%, and we're looking at improved relations in terms of CSOs and the government, but much more is there to be done. And the reason I'm showing this to you is to really harmonize support for CSOs in the private sector in Czechia to focus more on solutions moving forward. Number 1 is to continue support on ODA. Number 2 is to really make the support of the government to ODA more predictable and really have a plan in the long term. Number 2 is working with the international community on development cooperation. So what does this mean? So really, when you talk about working on development, it's a huge animal. There's many factors to it, but in the simplest sense, there are 4 principles which is trying to be practiced by many donors and private corporations across the world, and that is ownership, inclusive partnerships, transparency and accountability, and focus on results. So applying these 4 principles in any project or anything you're working on, especially if you're having blended finance or working with different kind of stakeholders, this is very important in terms of seeing real development happen on the ground. And I think to make this real and less theoretical, I'm going to take one of these examples and make it more real for everyone here, and that is country ownership. If you look at country ownership, it basically puts emphasis on working with your intended recipients. So when you invest somewhere new, you work with the people that are there. You make them, or you cooperate with them to develop a KPI or a theory of change or a log frame that resounds to them. It should not be the donors or the people implementing or spending the money that will be like, these are our priorities because this is what we want to do. No, you listen to the local population, or in many cases, the developing country that is receiving this aid. And the third here, what I really want to end on, is called the Kampala principles. So the Kampala principles is an offshoot of the development effectiveness principles, and really looks at private sector engagement. So in this very basic enumeration, you will see how the 4 principles that were discussed a while ago have been specially tailor-fit to the private sector. So we're looking at, for example, having an emphasis on results, having an emphasis on inclusive partnership. So what this is trying to unlock is to ensure that private sector engagement is done so in a way that is morally right, that is effective, that is effective for the people, but also ensuring significant returns for the initial investment. So now moving back, we saw three solutions that I tried to push forward. I'm trying to see, I want you to not only discuss best practices and solutions here in this event, but I also want you to have a grander picture of what's happening now. So you not only can you work with governments, hold them to account, and make their contribution to develop more effective, but you can also work with beyond your country, looking at international community with international CSOs, with the UN, with the OECD, and with different multilateral banks and also international corporations. But lastly, if there's only one thing that I really want to impart to all the innovators, small enterprises, and even large corporations attending this event, is take a look at the Kampala Principles. Google it on your phone, see what it's trying to say. Actually, if you go to the website of the Global Partnership for the GPEDC, you will see a specialized toolkit. Depending on who you are, you can download the specialized toolkit to really show how this can apply to your business model, how can this help achieve your goals. So with that, I want to thank the organizers, and I want to thank everyone here for taking the time to listen to me. As it shows, I already assumed this would be the unpopular opinion here in this conference, and so there's only one takeaway that I want everyone to really have here is to use this context, this international reality, and apply it to all the conferences, all the panel sessions that you'll be attending, and to have it always at the back of your head. So with that, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to get in touch with Patrick and the organizers. They will put you in touch with me, and we can really take this forward if you want. So with that, thank you everyone for your time again, and it's a pleasure to be invited. Thank you.
Yes. I think Mr. Tan deserves an applause. Thank you so much. Now we will switch things up a little bit, because we are about to start a panel, and I would like to invite Mr. Jakub Skavron, who will be the moderator of the panel, together with his guests. So the floor is yours, please. I'll give you the mic.
Výborně. Just as a quick first question, shall we do it in English, or it would be better for the audience to have it in Czech? Jelikož nevím žádnou reakci, jak to budeme dělat v češtině, což to pro všechny bude víc jako přirozený. Já mám dneska potěšení tady dneska diskutovat s váma téma, který je síla dat v oblasti ESG. ESG je téma, který je pro spoustu z vás, nebo pro spoustu lidí v celé společnosti velmi nehmotné a složitě uchopitelné. A je tady za poslední dekádu, poslední měsíce, poslední roky miliarda různých přístupů, spoustu firm, které nabízejí této služby a nabízejí to za určité podmínky, které mají od sebe velmi daleko. Aby jsme tohleto téma tady dneska trošku rozsekli a diskutovali, kde je ten core dat okolo ESG. Mám tady dneska exkluzivní hosty, kteří jsou na tohle téma nejpovolanější, které já osobně znám. Je tady Markéta Horková ze společnosti EY. Je tady Ondřej Rybka ze společnosti PwC. Máme tady Ondru Veselovskýho z Twichu. Lukáše Ferkla z Sanditrailu. A nakonec Václava z Coinu. Václave, vítejte. Já vás všechny tady vítám. Asi mikrofon si podáváme? Nebo máme víc mikrofonů? Máme relativně dneska dost času. Nicméně stále platí to, proč jsme tady se sešli. Dá se vůbec efektivně měřit ESG? Markéto, jestli můžu na vás. A jestli si to vykopnete, tuhletu diskuzi. Dá se efektivně, je tady jednotná metodologie, je tady jediný správný přístup, jak se dá měřit ESG?
Já nevím, jestli to funguje super. Já myslím, že ano, pokud ESG opravdu česky rozbetlujeme do té podstaty, co ESG se snaží de facto jakoby změřit. To znamená, pokud firmy se opravdu soustředí na to, co je materiální, kde můžou mít takzvaný impact dopad, opravdu si změří ten svůj dopad, pozbírají si data, ale opravdu, jak se říká v angličtině thoroughly, tak potom si myslím, že ano, že ESG se dá měřit.
Děkuju. Poprosím Lukáše, jestli někdo se může se k tomu vyjádřit.
Tak měřit jde určitě všechno. Já si myslím, že jak já chápu ESG, tak je to nějaká metoda risk managementu, to znamená, je to nějaký způsob, jak si vyhodnotit rizika a příležitosti, a to ESG vám může dát nějaká čísla a vy pokud jim rozumíte, tak vám to pomůže k rozhodování, ale nemůže to ESG na základě nějakých shrnujících čísel nahradit to vaše rozhodování a vzít vám nebo nahradit vaši zodpovědnost za to rozhodování.
Výborně, tak víme, že ESG se dá měřit. A jaký je ten správný přístup? Já jsem se osobně setkal za poslední 24 měsíců s tisícem různých přístupů, s tisíce různých poradenských firm, který tomu přistupují různě za různé poplatky. Ondro, co je správný přístup? Máme jednotnou metodologii?
No, já bych právě možná trošku oponoval tomu, že se to dá jednoduše měřit. My jsme teďka vlastně připravovali 2 společnosti na IPO a byli jsme vlastně fakticky svědky toho, že do toho procesu bylo zahrnuto asi 7 finančních institucí a každá k tomu přistupovala úplně jinak. A ten klient byl z toho hodně, řekněme, rozladěný a moc nechápal vlastně, jak je toho možný. Takže ten jednotný přístup vlastně v tuhle chvíli neexistuje a každá ta instituce, ať už finanční nebo ratingová, k tomu přistupuje podle svého nějakého modelu, který si vytvořila. A platná regulace, vlastně, která by tohle měla nějakým způsobem usměrnit, je teprve ve výrobě, když to takhle řeknu, takže ten efektivní přístup v tuhle chvíli neexistuje a je to potom i na nějakým externím subjektu, aby vůbec pomohl tomu klientovi se nějak zorientovat a podle toho, vlastně, na který ratingy se třeba chystá nebo který finanční instituce jsou do toho zapojený, tak mu to co nejvíc usnadnila.
Jak se mají firmy v tady změti začít orientovat? Ondro?
Jo, děkuju. To, co je ve výrobě, já navážu, to, co je ve výrobě, to jsou ty evropské standardy pro vykazování udržitelnosti, takže my budeme mít jednoznačně, nebo už máme jednoznačný set toho, čeho by se firmy měly držet. A samozřejmě je důležité uvědomit si, proč to měřím. Jo. Co tím chci dosáhnout. Já můžu měřit spoustu věcí, ale pokud mi to nikam informačně neposune nebo neumožní mi to získat skutečně celkový obrázek, tak je zbytečný měřit jednotlivé datapointy. A to, co je v těch standardech jasně definovaný, to už víme dneska, je to uhlíková stopa, je to odpadová stopa, je to spotřeba energie, takže tohle jsou další dimenze, které firmy budou muset začít řešit. Vedle samozřejmě těch finančních dimenzí. A bude to složité, protože každá ta dimenze má svoje specifika, svoji interpretaci, takže bude to skutečně asi ze začátku, si dovolím troufnu si odhadnout, že se budou firmy soustředit na to, co dneska ne úplně řeší, což je spotřeba energií, potažmo ta uhlíková stopa. Myslím si, že tím začnou. To bude to nejsnažší, pak budou navazovat dalšími otázkami. Můj osobní názor.
Ondro, mluvil jsi o uhlíkové stopě, o odpadové stopě. Václave, i v těch oblastech je ten přístup jednotný?
No, to se týká třeba uhlíkové stopy, tak v zásadě jsou jako nějaké 2 metodiky, které se dají použít pro její výpočet, nicméně my ve spolupráci tady s kolegou Ferklem vlastně, tak který vlastně se specializuje na výpočet uhlíkové stopy, tak vlastně víme, že když se to jako trošku dobře vymyslí, tak vlastně se to dá udělat tak, aby vyšla stejná čísla, nicméně to není úplně jako podmínkou. Já bych možná ještě krátce navázal na to, co tady zaznělo od kolegů. Za prvé strašně souhlasím s kolegou Freklem s tím, že vlastně ESG by mělo vlastně být součástí analýzy rizik a vlastně dnes se to spíš ještě pořád bere jako něco, co musím jako nějakým způsobem splnit a neřeší se úplně ty následky, to znamená třeba, že díky analýze ESG zevrubné opravdu já se můžu podívat na to, jaká rizika mám v dodavatelském řetězci nebo jaké příležitosti mám, co se týká získání nových klientů, nových trhů a tak podobně. To je jedna věc. A druhá věc, co se týká vlastně toho měření, tak já jsem trošičku skeptik vlastně toho přístupu, že když hodíme všechna ta čísla ze všech oblastí jako do nějakého trichtýře a vyhodí nám to jedno číslo, takže vlastně to bude nějakým způsobem použitelné, když vezmu tu obrovskou škálu těch firem a rozdílnosti mezi nimi. A v zásadě si myslím, že podobně jako já jsem vystudovaný ekonom u HDP, kdy vlastně celou dobu se ekonomové přou o tom, že to není jako dobrý indikátor a měli bychom zohledňovat celou řadu dalších věcí, mimo jiné i z oblasti udržitelnosti, tak podobně do určité míry, minimálně v začátcích se ta diskuze o té udržitelnosti bude hodně zjednodušovat, což neříkám, že je dobře, ale jsem praktik, na otázku uhlíkové stopy. A potom ty společnosti v druhé fázi už si budou vybírat nějaké jako třešničky z toho, co dělají, což je super, které vlastně se budou snažit nějakým způsobem prezentovat v těch ostatních oblastech. Ale nebude to tak, nemyslím si, že jako to jednotné, že dospějeme velmi brzy k nějakému jednotnému číslu, které by dokázalo jednoznačně říct, že někdo je udržitelnější než někdo jiný. Protože prostě takhle jednoduše se to nedá říct.
Skvělý. Markéto, já se chci zeptat, tady Ondra říkal, že jeho firma připravila pár firm na IPO a klient byl rozladěný z toho, kolik přístupů tady je a jaká je nekonsistence mezi daty. Vaše společnost je velmi podobná jako společnost, co zastupuje Ondra. Vy vidíte světlo na konci tunelu, jak se tady ta situace dá zjednodušit, lépe interpretovat vašim klientům, aby se v tom nestráceli?
Tak zjednodušit možná ne. Co my teda se snažíme s klienty odkomunikovat, je ta takzvaná postupná cesta. Že ten proces jsem schopný všechno pozbírat za pár měsíců, jsem si schopný zmapovat veškeré dopady, rizika, příležitosti, nastavit si strategii, napsat report, efektivně to odkomunikovat, implementovat veškeré politiky a procesy. Je to opravdu dlouhodobý proces. Vyžaduje to zapojení strašného spoustu lidí ve firmě, protože musíte komunikovat s lidmi v risku, s lidmi, co mají na starosti odpadové hospodářství například, s lidmi z HR, z legal. Musí být zapojený management, protože bez podpory managementu vlastně tady to cvičení jakoby nemá smysl. Zároveň si firma, to vlastně říkají vám ty standardy, zmapujte si, jaký jsou vaši stakeholderi a pro koho vlastně ten report vytváříte, kde máte ten primární zájem, na co se chcete soustředit a de facto, co i my pořád opakujeme, je ten princip té materiality tam není jenom jakoby nějaké teoretické cvičení. Vy opravdu jako firma si máte zmapovat, kde máte ty nejdůležitější dopady, jednak na ten okolní svět nebo na společnost a zároveň, kde jsou ty hlavní rizika na vás a potom na základě toho se soustředit a opravdu implementovat politiky, procedury, tak, abyste veškeré tady ty impakty rizika mitigovali. A v momentě, kdy jste schopni udělat tady tuhletu mitigaci dopadů a rizik, se začít soustředit na ty příležitosti, které vám ESG Sustainability nabízí a integrovat je do vaší biznisové strategie a, jak se říká, vzít ty příležitosti a drive pro ten dlouhodobý jakoby growth a prospekt pro tu společnost. Takže nelze o to očekávat, že jste schopni ten koncept ESG pojmout během pár měsíců roku. Je to opravdu běh na dlouhou trať. A když se podíváte na velké listované společnosti na západ od našich hranic, jako pro ně ESG něco, co už dělají 20 let. A jak říkal kolega, zmapovací dodavatelský řetězec value chain, to jsou opravdu dlouhodobé programy, které trvají roky a roky. než ty firmy jsou je schopné zakompletovat do svých jakoby denodenních operací. Takže opravdu taková magic pilulka neexistuje, je to tvrdá práce a práce na běh na dlouhou práci.
Markéto, skvělý, děkuju. Tady pánové Lukáš, Václav mluvili o řízení rizik. Vy říkáte o mapování současného prostředí v té firmě a definování nějakých kroků. Ondro, není to spíš o definování strategie? Ondra Rybka. Není to spíš o definování se strategie té firmy, kde jednotlivé pilíře jsou řízení rizik, mapování současného stavu a možná nejenom definování strategie, ale změna business modelu jako takového té firmy.
Tak ta firma vlastně nějakou samozřejmě svoji businessovou strategii má, každá firma ji má a mění se prostředí, to znamená mění se trendy a ona musí tu svoji businessovou strategii upravovat a jedním z těch trendů je i udržitelnost, to znamená zapracovat vlastně tu udržitelnost do své businessové strategie. Takže to mění vlastně celou tu, nebo mělo by to měnit přístup té firmy i samozřejmě obchodně a už v tuhletu chvíli zejména teda firmy v automotivu jsou tlačený vlastně nějakou iniciativou, která vznikla v Německu, říká se jí Catena X, vlastně začaly do ní vstupovat firmy jako BMW, Daimler, teď už teda nově i Volkswagen. A ta si vlastně dala za cíl opravdu jakoby počítat detailně tu uhlíkovou stopu toho svého produktu, toho svého vozu. Doteď se to ve velké míře hodně odhadovalo. A to znamená, že vlastně celý ten řetězec, který s tím automotivem souvisí, bude tímhletím ovlivněný a to zasahuje fakt do biznisu. To zasahuje do toho, že musíte ty data sbírat, že to musíte analyzovat, že musíte dekarbonizovat, že musíte přecházet na nové technologie. Není to úplně levná záležitost, s tím souvisí samozřejmě i ty rizika, které to přináší a další věci.
Skvělý. Ondro, jak ty, respektive tvoje firma, pomáhá se těm firmám zorientovat ty změti těch dat a přístupů?
Jo, děkuju. Já nechci tady dělat reklamu, ale budu dělat reklamu trochu, protože jsme asi poslední rok pracovali s 5 největšíma českýma bankama na tom, aby jsme dali dohromady jednotný systém otázek a odpovědí pro firmy, aby se v této oblasti začaly orientovat. Ta výhoda je, že banky si pak budou mezi sebou sdílet informace, takže budou mít přístup i ke klientům svým, i neklientům. Ten take-up toho celého ESG bude mnohem rychlejší i mezi firmama, protože oni vyplní ten dotazník jednou pro banku a nazdílí se to těm dalším 5 bankám automaticky. Takže tohle je něco, co já vidím jako cestu, smysl, jak to v našich českých podmínkách, kde si myslím, že jsme hodně pozadu, a to tady zaznělo, potřebujeme přidat poměrně razantně, jak to dostat mezi firmy. Jo? Protože my se bavíme o různých přístupech, o různých standardech, a když se pak bavíte s těmi ne úplně největšími korporacemi a kotovanými firmami, tak zjistíte, že oni vlastně o tom vůbec nic nevědí, pokud ti do toho netlačí jejich zákazník.
Václave, jsme opravdu tak hrozně pozadu?
Já si myslím, že v mnoha aspektech ano, ale je to něco, co můžeme překonat. Je to jenom otázka vlastně změny toho našeho mentálního nastavení a já to bohužel vlastně vidím nejenom v té otázce udržitelnosti, ale dlouhodobě se zabývám udržitelnou mobilitou, energetikou a tak podobně. A nevím, jestli je to jako česká mentalita nebo něco, ale právě dlouhodobě narážíme na to, že vlastně těm novým věcem obecně se bráníme a máme vlastně nějaké jako podezření k tomu, že jsou motivovány nějakými nekalými úmysly a podobně. A na jednu stranu je to dobře. Já jsem strašně rád, že zase v rámci jako těch diskuzí o řešení různých problémů, které nás čekají, včetně udržitelnosti, tak vlastně ten český hlas je extrémně jako pragmatický. A myslím si, že jako v té jako globální diskuzi to je určitě jako strašně velký přínos, ale zároveň to znamená, že určitým způsobem nejsme na té špičce. My se bojíme experimentovat, to je jedno, jestli v soukromé nebo veřejné správě přijde mi, že prostě v zahraničí je ať už v Americe nebo jihovýchodní Asie, tak ty společnosti jsou mnohem jako dravější zkoušet věci a vlastně, když to nevíde, nevadí, prostě zkusíme něco jiného a něco z těch 10 věcí, co jsme zkusili, vyjde a to právě bude ten úspěch, který nás jako posune dopředu v obecné rovině. A u nás je to spíš takový jako pomalu, ale co se mně líbí alespoň, je to, že vlastně teď vidím obrovskou snahu minimálně vlastně napojit se na ty lídry a komunikovat s nimi a sdílet s nimi zkušenosti, kteří právě zkoušejí tady ty nové věci a to se týká právě i udržitelnosti a učit se od nich vlastně ty praktické věci, co se nepovedlo, co se povedlo, co je dobrá cesta a vlastně to si myslím, že asi nemám představu, že bychom úplně změnili ten přístup, který jako obecně tady u nás panuje, ale tady tohle, co si myslím, že proti tomu nemůže nikdo nic namítat. Pojďme se podívat na ty, co jsou vlastně nejdál, co toho vyzkoušeli nejvíc a od nich se vzít to nejlepší a vlastně posunout se, alespoň se dotáhnout se na tu špičku.
Výborně. Lukáši, jedna otázka, která vyplývá z toho, co tady dneska zaznělo, je tady velké množství přístupů k měření ESG, uhlíkové stopy. Je tady změť na té druhé straně, jestli od vašich klientů se to správně zorientovat a najít to světlo na konci tunela. Je vaše práce, tak jak vy přicházíte do kontaktu s vašimi klientama, binární ve smyslu přijdeme, za 2 měsíce změříme uhlíkovou stopu a odcházíme, nebo vaše práce je následná, že kromě toho, že měříte uhlíkovou stopu, tak tam vstupujete i do formování a redesignování strategie té firmy nebo přemýšlení o změnu chování té firmy, nebo zasahujete ještě hloubš do DRA té firmy. Takže na stejnou otázku bych chtěla, aby odpověděla i Markéta s Ondrovou Rybkou. Prosím.
No, to pak ještě následuje donutíte, aby zaplatili fakturu, ale což je mimochodem jedno z kritérií ESG. My jsme, já to teď trošku odlehčím, mám pocit, že aby to nebylo tak moc vážný. Omlouvám se. My jsme v trošku jiné situaci, my jsme vlastně relativně malá firma a v tom K-čku, v tom ESG je jedno, jakou máte platební morálku vůči malým a středním firmám, protože malé a střední firmy samozřejmě dost bojují s cashflow, což můžu potvrdit, takže když pak máte milion na pozdě zaplacených fakturách, tak můžete říkat, aha, tak my vám děláme ESG strategii a tady vám dáme takovýhle pěkný report a vy nám pak nezaplatíte. Ale zpátky k té uhlíkové stopě. My máme výhodu v tom, že na tu uhlíkovou stopu je opravdu jako norma. To znamená, má to ISO číslo, respektuje to Greenhouse Gas protokol, takže tam je to jako jasně dané. Ta uhlíková stopa se počítá už desítky let, čili jsou tam zavedené principy, je jako zřejmé, co se s tím má dělat. Co je výhoda a nevýhoda zároveň je, že ty metody, ale ono vlastně to ESG, je to risk management a je to původně designované dovnitř firmy. To znamená, je to pro vnitřní potřebu té firmy, je to dobrovolný nástroj původně, jakým způsobem snižovat svůj dopad na životní prostředí. Nikdy to nebylo děláno k tomu, aby se to reportovalo ven a aby se to mezi sebou porovnávalo. V těch normách je dokonce občas napsáno, neporovnávejte mezi sebou ty firmy. V té ISO normě je to jako napsané a to je přesně to, co se teď dělá. My to chápeme opravdu jako první krok, my tady teď mluvíme o tom reportingu, ale ten reporting té přírodě nebo té udržitelnosti jako vůbec nepomůže. Když někde vyplníte Excel, tak je to úplně k ničemu. My se setkáváme s tím, že zase, zvlášť u menších a středních firm, každá firma se tím životním prostředím nějakým způsobem zabývá nebo zabývala. Každá firma větší než třeba, 100 zaměstnanců má jednoho člověka, a ty menší firmy mají jednoho člověka na to, aby vymýšlel projekty, které pomůžou té přírodě. A ten člověk místo teď by vymýšlel modernizace čističek, instalaci fotovoltaických panelů, tak vyplňuje ty Excelové tabulky. To znamená, my v první řadě se snažíme té firmě jako nějakým způsobem o tohle z toho pomoct. Samozřejmě to stojí nějaké peníze. Ale myslím si, že do budoucna tohle bude potřeba řešit, aby ty firmy pracovaly na těch projektech, které té přírodě a té společnosti pomůžou. A nemuseli řešit to, že si teď tady budu mluvit proti nám všem, musí najmout konzultanta, aby vůbec jako dokázali přečíst ten předpis, podle kterého mají tu tabulku vyplnit. Čili pro nás je tohle jako stěžejní, vidíme v tom velkou příležitost a myslím si, že se o tom zatím opravdu málo mluví. My mluvíme o tom reportingu, o tom, jakým způsobem zpracovávat ty reporty, jakým způsobem je vyhodnocovat, ale když se podíváte na ty reálně projekty, co se dělají za posledních 10 let, jestli se tady něco jako podstatného změnilo, jsou to jako spíš výjimky. A já ještě jednu nakonec příklad. Nesmí se to přehnat hlavně, protože my pracujeme s jednou firmou, je to německá firma v Německu, není to česká firma. A oni vyrábějí výfuky a do kamionu. A přišlo jim z Volvo Trucks požadavek, do roku 2030 musíte být carbon neutral. A ta firma neudělala vůbec nic, protože řekli, to nejde. To prostě, a měli pravdu, to jako nejde tu výrobu udělat carbon neutral do roku 2030. Volvo to zjistilo a řekla, dobře, tak co Gates to Gate emise snížit o 40% do roku 2030. A oni řekli, no to je sice jako pořád, ale tak to už by nějak šlo. A začali něco dělat. Čili když je cíl, který je realistický a je byť ambiciózní, tak ta firma něco začne dělat. Ale pokud to je úplně mimo, tak ta firma neudělá vůbec nic, protože ví, že to stejně toho nedosáhne a že si tím nepomůže.
Skvělý. Markéto, Ondro?
Za mě, já bych pořád se vracím k tomu materiálu, k tomu, kde ta firma opravdu si musí udělat nějaký takový ten základní cvičení, kde jsou opravdu ty fundamentální dopady nebo ty rizika, která ta firma může mít. Ať už na ten, jako, jaký bude dopad na její biznis, protože když si nespočítám uhlíkovou stopu a nebudu carbon neutral, tak můj prostě odběratel mě pustí a tím pádem jako nebudu mít biznis a ten můj biznis jako nebude konkurenceschopný a pro investory to nebude žádná hodnota, tím pádem tam není žádná long-term valuation. Stejně tak mi přijde, že pokud si nepozbírám ty data na tom, co pro mě má ten smysl, kde to opravdu dává ten smysl pro mě jako firma se soustředit, kde jsem si identifikoval ty hlavní rizika a dopady. Pokud si neudělám ten základní screening, tak si nemůžu dávat žádný target, nemůžu si dávat nějaké strategie, protože jak si můžu říct, že budu neutrální 2040, když nevím, odkud jakoby začínám. Takže je to opravdu postup vzít to od základu, dobře, někdo vám bude muset pomoct. A potom bych řekla i další teda ten element, což je úplně ten nový přístup, co přijde s tou novou legislativou, je, že ty čísla budou auditovaná. Jo? Že opravdu si firmy nebudou moct dát nějaké odhady, nějaké takové marketingové zprávy, ale že auditoři po těch ukazatelích půjdou po těch procesech, půjdou po těch KPIs a opravdu časem se ta nefinanční část toho reportu dostane na stejnou úroveň jako finanční. A já myslím, že to bude opravdu ten hlavní předěl, jak tomu firmy budou postupovat a jak opravdu budou dávat takovou tu due diligence celému tomu procesu, a kde i ten board a ten management opravdu řekne, ale není to jenom něco, nějaký takový label, ale je to něco, co už může mít závažné důsledky, když do té zprávy dáme něco, co nemáme podložené těmi tvrdými čísly.
Skvělý. Ondro?
No, tak já možná zkusím nějak reagovat, už jsem možná i zapomněl otázku, ale...
Tak ta otázka, prosím.
Spíš tak nějak to, co tady zaznělo, že ten Excel vám vlastně jakoby nic nezlepší. Ano, na druhou stranu mám fakt zkušenost s tím, že, jak už tady bylo zmíněno, firmy spoustu věcí už dělali historicky, velmi zajímavé projekty, ať už technologického typu, nebo takový, který fakt jako přispívají biodiverzitě a spoustu zajímavým věcem, který vlastně s tím ESG souvisejí. Ale ve chvíli, kdy ta firma opravdu jakoby se zastaví a podívá se na to, jaký jsou třeba konkrétní hodnoty v určitých oblastech, teď, a můžeme se bavit třeba i o té social části, o platech, o tom, jak je na tom vlastně vůči, já nevím, nějakému mediánu, jak je na tom vůči jiným regionům, nebo i vůbec jakoby v rámci své firmy, pokud má více poboček. A musím říct, že některé takovýhle jako pro mě až možná manažersky základní jako indikátory si ty firmy jako bez toho, že mají teďka popsaný nějaký indikátory, nespočítali a nepodívali se na to a nedalo jim to vlastně vůbec tu možnost se na to fakt jako kouknout, zastavit se nad tím a říct si, hele, tak tady jsou možná nějaké jako nekonzistence, tady jsou možná nějaké jako informace, které nám nedávají smysl a ty informace jim pomůžou do budoucna se fakt jako posunout. Jo. Takže ano, ta regulace není jako o tom, že by měla vysloveně jako ty firmy nějak jako buzerovat, ale ve finále jim třeba i dá nějaký aspoň landscape toho, co si myslíme, že je základní a na co by se každá firma měla podívat a co by měla společnost o každé té firmy vědět. A to je vlastně to, v čem já vidím ten největší smysl té regulace.
No, Ondro, skvělý. To mě přivádí na téma, a teďka budou hodně bipolární a zase to zkusím po vzoru Lukáše trošku zlehčit. Téma ESG je téma, který je velmi zlehčováno, velmi kritizováno, ať už z politické sféry v České republice nebo i z biznesové sféry v České republice. A když já to hodně zjednoduším a zlehčím, je to téma, který nám přidělává administrativní starost, který nás stojí spoustu peněz. Nevidíme důvod, proč to máme dělat, nevidíme smysl. Ondro, ty ve své práci, ať už současný nebo minulý, máš za sebou něco hmatatelného, co by ty, s čím komunikuješ a s čím funguješ na denní bázi, přineslo té firmě reálný, komerční, biznesový, pozitivní impact?
No, cash is the king a peníze jsou až na prvním místě. No, my jsme jako nějak záhadným způsobem se nám podařilo i monetizovat část těch našich produktů už, takže třeba pracujeme, nabízíme analýzu vlastně budoucích fyzických rizik, které se budou dotýkat budov, ale i firem v těch oblastech, které budou náchylnější víc ke změnám klimatu. A už se objevují první vlaštovky, které říkají, nás tohle zajímá, chceme s tím začít pracovat, protože když se na to kouknete, ono je to sice jako ten horizont se zdá být daleký, třeba 10, 15, 20 let, ale vlastně ta klimatická změna akceleruje. Jo. Už dneska tady máme teploty, které jsou nad ty 2 stupně nebo nad 2,5 stupně a vlastně si začínají banky, pojišťovny, velké firmy uvědomovat, my máme vlastně problém. Pojďme se koukat na to, třeba já nevím, ČES, kde máme vlastně transformátory. Nemůže se tam stát, že nás to tam zaplaví, nebo že nám to tam nějaké tornádo nebo krupovitý spoukne. Takže teď jsem prozradil jenom svých firm, omlouvám se, ale vlastně už nacházíme ty, kteří se tím vážně zabývají a začínají přemýšlet, jak to na ně může dopadnout. Nejenom to, co mám dělat já směrem do firmy, ale to, co mě může jako firmu ohrozit zásadním způsobem můj biznes.
Lukáši, stejná otázka pro tebe. Je aktivita, kterou děláš ty, a to je měření uhlíkové stopy, aktivity ohledně ESG, jenom náklad pro firmu, nebo už to přináší firmě i pozitivní efekty biznesově, nebo mění to její business model, aby oni viděli, že to, proč to dělá, jim přináší buď nový biznis, nebo i udrží v biznesu, kterým jsou?
Určitě, já jsem to trošku jako záměrně nadsadil ten svůj předchozí výstup. Samozřejmě, že když ta firma má data, na který se může rozhodovat, tak se jí rozhoduje daleko lépe. Ono se to lépe, ten přínos paradoxně ukazuje zase na těch malých firmách, protože když je třeba máme, asi můžu jmenovat, pracujeme pro firmu VisionCraft, což je startup, který vyrábí CCTV kamery, které využívají umělou inteligenci přímo na čipu uvnitř té kamery a jen ten výpočet té uhlíkové stopy vůbec jako dal představu o tom, jak jsou environmentálně, ale i energeticky efektivní ta zařízení a díky tomu se můžou dostat do veřejných tendrů, můžou se hlásit do veřejných zakázek a mají tam konkurenční výhodu vůči vůči konkurenci a dokážou ji přesně pojmenovat a přesně popsat. U těch středně velkých firm je to zase práce s tou uhlí. Ta uhlíková stopa je dobrý ukazatel obecně efektivity výroby. To znamená, vy když máme jako zase dva příklady, kdy jedna firma se soustředila na odpadové hospodářství a nedařilo se jí to, a když se spočítala tu uhlíkovou stopu, tak zjistila, proč se jí to nedařilo, protože neprodukuje skoro žádný odpady, tak to nemohla moc snižovat. Naopak zase další firma, která hodně dělá z výrobky z oceli, tak opravdu pracuje na tom dodavatelském řetězci a přišlo na to, že vlastně ty výrobky, které jsou nebo ty suroviny, které jsou ekologicky příznivější, jsou vlastně levnější, paradoxně. To znamená, je to takový speciální případ, to znamená, že ta firma, když s tím nesmí to strčit do šuplíku, ten výpočet, když s ním pracuje, má ta data, jak tady Markéta s Ondřejem říkali, tak když se s tím pracuje, tak tam jde jako ušetřit. Jsou to nějaké indikátory, musí se s tím pracovat, není to samospásné, ale jo.
Václave, jsme se dneska sešli několikrát, firmy vydávají nebo budou muset vydávat zprávu o ESG, někdo tomu říká Sustainability Report. Dá se v budoucnu malá, střední nebo i velká firma obejít bez kvalitního sustainability reportu, a pokud on nebude mít kvalitní, jaký můžou být dopady na tu firmu? Teďka dám jako paralelu i na justici. Firmy mají povinnost vykazovat své výroční zprávy nebo finanční výkazy a ve spoustu případech jsou velmi fragmentované nebo splňují pouze legislativní nutnost. Je ta legislativní nutnost, co se nás se valí, dostačující, aby firmy se udržely v konkurenčním prostředí?
Děkuji za slovo. Myslím si, že tahle odpověď na tu otázku strašně se bude vyvíjet v čase a rychleji, než si myslím mnoho těch jako malých a středních firm bude čekat. My už teď vlastně díky schválené regulaci na evropské úrovni víme, jaký je ten jízdní plán pro ty velké firmy, i vlastně jaké ty povinnosti v obecné rovině budou muset splňovat, byť ty konkrétní věci v rámci toho vykazování ještě nejsou úplně dovařený, ty přesní vlastně postupy. Nicméně vlastně už máme jasnou představu, příští rok vlastně bude první, za který se bude muset vykazovat ty největší firmy a postupně to přejde na všechny vlastně jako velké nebo veřejně obchodované firmy. Co se týká těch středních a malých, tak na tyto v nějaké nepřímé roli v závislosti na tom, jaký ten biznis dělají, dopadne taky. Z mnoha důvodů. První věc je, co se týká vlastně prodejů nebo marketingu obecně u firem, tak ten se extrémně posouvá na úroveň příběhů, ať už osobních, anebo vlastně nějakých, je to vlastně mnohem víc o té emoci a o tom vlastně ničím spojeným a zároveň ty uživatelské skupiny, které nejvíc jako rozdmíchávají ty trendy a jsou nejaktivnější, tak jsou ty jako mladší populace, byť nemají takovou kupní sílu, jako ku podivu samozřejmě, ale tím, že vlastně jako kdyby oni se dokáží zorganizovat a sortovat přes ty sociální sítě a právě řeší extrémně tu otázku udržitelnosti, tak osobně si myslím, že vlastně největší dopad budou mít právě ty projekty, které budou schopny uspokojit nějakou jejich vlastně potřebu reflektovat to své prostředí a musím říct, že oni vnímají velmi citlivěji tady tu problematiku udržitelnosti. Na druhé straně jsme slyšeli, že vlastně v automotiv, a já mám několik osobních zkušeností, kdy se na mě obracejí vlastně malé střední firmy, které jsou někde v průběhu toho automotiv řetězce, které potřebují teďka řešit uhlíkovou stopu, respektive i další vlastně věci v reportingu ESG směrem nahoru tím potravinovým řetězcem až do koncernu. A ty vlastně jako kdyby přesto, že se jich přímo to nedotýká, tak jsou prostě v tom scope 3, v tom jako širším pojetí toho, co vlastně řeší ty velké společnosti, které reportovat budou muset a tím pádem na ty to vlastně taky dopadne. Takže vlastně jako kdyby, ať se na to podíváme z nějaké strany, tak na drtivou většinu hráčů na trhu podle mého to vlastně dojde, ale každý s tím bude pracovat trošičku jinak. Jo? Ty výrobní firmy, pokud vlastně nejsou přímo někým, kdo by marketoval přímo k těm klientům, ale vlastně jsou součástí nějakých řetězců, tak pro ně to spíš vlastně bude nějaká jako věc, nebo myslím si, že k tomu spíš budou se na to dívat, jako, že to je povinnost, kterou musím splnit. Neříkám, že to je dobře, spíš se snažím popsat jako tu realitu tak, jak já jsem ji navnímal od těch lidí, se kterými se o tom bavím. A na druhou stranu potom tady je celá řada mladých podnikatelů, kteří vidí tu příležitost v tom, že vlastně vytvoří nějaký jako udržitelný projekt, vytvoří kolem toho nějaký příběh a byť často ta udržitelnost ještě nebývá vždy úplně, jak bych to řekl, teď trošku narážím na greenwashing, jo? To znamená na určité zavádějící tvrzení o té udržitelnosti, tak přesto ty projekty bývají nesmírně úspěšné a my musíme zapracovat i na tom, aby vlastně jako kdyby ta tvrzení o té udržitelnosti teda byla nějaká jako relevantní. Ale nicméně v krátkosti já myslím, že ta odpověď je jasná, postupně to dopadne na všechny, protože máte zaměstnance, kteří to budou řešit čím dál tím víc, jak nastupuje mladá generace. Máte banky, které to budou řešit, pokud chcete koupit nový stroj nebo něco a financovat z toho, tak samozřejmě pokud ten projekt, v rámci kterého to děláte, nějakým způsobem zapadá do taxonomie, anebo vlastně snižuje vaši uhlíkovou stopu a tak podobně, tak vlastně budete mít možnost získat lepší podmínky. Celá řada věcí, které vlastně, kde vlastně na to ta firma narazí. Takže je dobré vlastně jako kdyby už teď začít přemýšlet nad těmi problémy a hlavně u těch jako nových projektů, u vlastně rozšiřování těch biznisů, tak tam a i musím říct ve veřejné sféře, a to se mi strašně líbí, tak už se o tom přemýšlí, už je to součástí té diskuze a já třeba vlastně na Praze mám možnost se na tom na hodně těch věcích podílet a jsem rád, že vlastně tam už jako je to norma, že se na to udržitelnosti vlastně taky přemýšlí. Děkuji.
Skvělý. Jedna závěrečná otázka pro všechny z vás. Nebo on to chceš reagovat?
Já jestli bych mohl reagovat, se tady hodně mluví o těch reportech, jo, ale on existuje mnohem snažší způsob, jak to o sobě dát vědět, že se nějakým způsobem snažím. A spousta těch institucí nebo i vlastně zákazníků se může podívat čistě jenom na web té společnosti, zjistí, že se nějak snaží, mají nějakou certifikaci nebo něco dělají. A je to mnohem rychlejší, snazší způsob, jak se v tom zorientovat, než začít zkoumat nějaký dlouhý report. Takže my vlastně jako si myslím, že spousta firm může jít tomu naproti tím, že to o sobě začne dobrovolně zveřejňovat. Čistě, jednoduše na webu.
Ondro, skvělý. Poslední otázka pro všechny vás. Jaký máme výzvy měření ESG nebo uhlíkové stopy v roce 2024? Co nás čeká? Co je to klíčový, čím se budete vy nebo firmy by se měly zabývat? Markéto, jestli začnete vy?
Pro nás je teda klíčová ta legislativa o udržitelnosti CSRD, co začne platit za 24 a potom 25 pro ty velké společnosti. A hlavním jako to výzvou bude pozbírat ty správné data, zverifikovat ty data. Ale já si myslím hlavně do budoucna, ono to vlastně není jenom tady ta CSRD direktiva, jako my jsme firmy pracují nebo podnikají v globálním prostředí a těch regulatorních požadavků je strašná spousta, ať už se snažíte podnikat v Americe, v Austrálii, v Asii. A já si myslím, že ta hlavní challenge bude pro ty firmy sbírat ty relevantní data, aby byly schopné držet krok s tou vyvíjející se legislativou, ať už jsou to různé cross-border daně, nebo například teď ve Spojených státech musíte prokazovat, odkud pochází vaše bavlněné oblečení, abyste nepodporovali určité regiony v Číně. A tam opravdu se bude klást důraz na tu kvalitu, prokazatelnost a traceabilitu dat. A firmy podle mého názoru budou muset dělat strašně rychlý progres takových těch excelovských souborů k automatickému sběru dat a k automatické verifikaci. A já myslím, že to bude největší challenge pro firmy tady z těch svých jednotlivých excelovských souborů to zautomatizovat a pracovat s těmi daty efektivně.
Jo, tak za nás asi pokusit se těch klientům opravdu pomoct v tom, aby překonali ten compliance problém pro mě v tomto směru co nejsnáš, a pomoct jim vlastně vytěžit z toho, že už nějakou aktivitu musí dělat pro tu biznisovou stránku, aby vlastně z toho měli nějaký užitek a nějaký zisk. Tak to je za mě jakoby ta největší challenge, kterou se snažíme vlastně pro každého klienta v každém industrii vlastně vymyslet. A co se týče z toho reportingového pohledu, tak opravdu udělat jednoduše double materialitu, protože to vyžaduje obrovský čas top managementu ve firmách, který prostě ty lidi nemají, a zároveň to fakt jako udělat tak, aby to prošlo tím auditem. Takže to je jako špek, který nás čeká.
No, já si myslím, že pro ně nejdůležitější bude nepropadnout panice. Jo? A začít s těma svýma zaměstnancema pracovat na tom, aby to přijali a nikoliv, aby to rezistovali, protože pokud jako dneska to funguje na bázi nějakých ostrovků pozitivní deviace, tak ty musí začít podstatným způsobem se rozšiřovat. Jo? A opravdu dneska jsou to jednotky lidí, kteří domů v těch firmách se věnují, věří tomu, ale ty to prostě nezvládnějí sami.
No to důležité už bylo řečeno, pro nás to jsou ještě navíc ty navazující konkrétní projekty a to, aby se ty firmy s těmi daty naučily nějak efektivně pracovat a využívat je. Tam je zase kromě double materiality, my tam máme další libůzku a to je finanční vyhodnocení těch rizik, které má v té CSRD odklad, což si myslím, že je skoro škoda, protože ono je to vlastně to nejdůležitější pro tu firmu vyjádřit pochopení. Nebo ne nejdůležitější, ale je to velice silný přesvědčovací argument, když ta firma uvidí, jaké to má finanční dopady, ta opatření, která dělá, tak jí to dokáže přesvědčit k nějaké akci. To znamená mít ty naučit se pracovat s těmi daty, které mám, mít v zásobě projekty, které zlepší ten trvalý udržitelný rozvoj a umět si to vyhodnotit ekonomicky dovnitř té firmy, co to pro ně bude znamenat, ať už v plusu nebo v mínusu.
Tak na mě taková těžká úloha, už toho skoro všechno zaznělo, tak já zkusím možná jako obecněji. Já si myslím, že české firmy obecně vlastně jsou více náchylné než řada vlastně jako našich sousedních států, jednak protože vlastně o té věci začínáme přemýšlet trošku později, jednak vlastně o tom, o čem jsem už mluvil trošku dřív, a hlavně i struktura té naší ekonomiky, ale naším jako hlavním úkolem bude trošku zlomit tu mentální bariéru, trošku se vlastně inspirovat Charlesem Darwinem, to znamená, že nevyhrávají nutně ti nejsilnější nebo nejrychlejší, ale ti, kteří se umí nejvíc přizpůsobit. Ta situace kolem nás momentálně je taková, že se extrémně rychle mění a my to musíme přijmout a vlastně musíme se na to adaptovat a vlastně strkat hlavu do písku v obecné rovině nebo říkat, že chceme, aby to takhle pokračovalo dál, když vlastně je to slepá kolej. Fyzicky prostě není možný po ní dál pokračovat, jo? Protože prostě to prostředí, ve kterém jsme, nám to neumožní. A to je úplně jedno, co si myslíme politicky, to je úplně jedno, co si myslíme osobně, prostě taková je realita a k tomu se musíme vlastně nějakým způsobem dostat a potom vlastně teprve překonat i ten strach z toho, že ano, tady jsou nějaké věci, které ty naše firmy čekají, které vlastně je ohrožují a začít hledat, kde jsou ty příležitosti a začít přemýšlet o té udržitelnosti strategicky a v tom smyslu, že vlastně se najde ten způsob, jak toho využít pro to, abychom se vlastně posunuli dopředu, abychom transformovali to naše hospodářství obecně a to ale je potřeba udělat na každém jednom podniku a vlastně v každé jedné firmě.
Václave, děkuju. Nakonec, než já se rozloučím s našimi hosty, otázka do pléna. Máte někdo z vás otázku na naše hosty, která by vás zajímala, která by byla doplňující? Pavle?
Díky moc. Já jsem si teda odnesl, že přírodě nepomůže, když vyplníme Excel. To mi přijde velmi zajímavý. Problém tématu ESG dat je, že vlastně je to docela jako nuda, je to reporting. Co se vám vyplatilo udělat, aby prostě ten board level a ostatní si řekli, jo, do toho jdu, to je důležitý. Jo, máme tady nějaký dodavatele, Volva, tak ti do toho jsou natlačení. Ale jestli je něco, co vám pomohlo se dostat z toho teritoria jako nudy a Excelu do té akce schopné nějaké jako mise těch lidí, pojďme něco změnit.
zareaguju. Já jsem měl možnost, nebo takhle. Důležité je nakoupit opravdu ten top management, aby to šlo ze zhora a s nima vymyslet ten zajímavý case právě ty aplikace těch compliance věcí pro ten business. Což se neříkám ve 100% daří, ale když se to podaří, tak ten projekt potom má mnohem snazší průběh. Takže tohle je za mě klíč.
Já si myslím, že je to určitě příležitost se pochlubit, tím, že jsme něco dokázali i na úrovni toho jednoho člověka, toho příběhu. Takže to nemusí být jenom o těch jenom nudných datech, ale může to být přesně ta story, ten storytelling na konci, který někoho pak dalšího zajímá a vezme tu myšlenku a bude dál pokračovat.
Skvělý. Dovolte mi teda, abych to teda ukončil. Udělám takový lehký jako summary, co jsem si odnes já, kromě toho, co říkal Pavel. Pro mě bylo klíčový, že je důležitý mít příběh. Ondro, děkuji za to. Důležité, co je klíčový, je, že každá ryba smrdí od hlavy a je důležitý, aby ta změna šla ze zhora, aby tomu ten management věřil. A třetí, co jste říkal Václav vy a darwinovsky, i kdo se nepřizpůsobí komerčně, nemusí přežít. A to je bohužel pravda, že to není téma České republiky, není to téma Bruselu, je to téma globální a tím bychom se měli všichni jako smířit, že to je změna současného prostředí. Já vám všem děkuji Markétě, děkuji Ondrovi, děkuji druhému Ondrovi, Lukáši, Václave, díky moc.
To all panelists for a very thoughtful panel. We have a lot to think about. Now we will go smoothly to our next keynote. Mrs. Markéta Horková, who was actually here as a panelist, and now I'll give her the word to tell us more about their approach in Ernst & Young.
Slyšíme se? Takže já se zkusím navázat na tu naši panelovou diskuzi. Pokud vám to nevadí, tak já se zase přepnu do angličtiny, protože ta prezentace je v angličtině a mně se to asi bude trošičku líp říkat. Takže the topic of my presentation is ESG reporting, transparency and accountability. How do companies make sure that they are measuring things that really matter? In the face of global sustainability challenges, the role of organizations, businesses is really key and is coming to the center of importance. And sustainability reporting serves as acknowledgement and response to these rising challenges. What's important to remember that what was once at a company discretion is becoming mandatory and subject to independent third-party assurance. So far, majority of companies were issuing reports that were more in terms of how great they're doing, rather than really facing and reporting on their true impact, on the actions and measurable commitments they are taking to mitigate these impacts and to embrace the opportunities. Because the the environment that the companies are operating is extremely challenging, and the regulation really keeps coming, and it can be a bit confusing for the reporters, especially if the companies are new to this processes. The main challenges we see for companies that are trying to report on their sustainability efforts are, as I said, rapidly evolving regulation. It's not just the regulation that's coming at the EU level. It's the regulations in Asia, in the US, and it's becoming very tricky to keep up with all the things that are happening. Another major challenge for companies is insufficient internal expertise and experience. The issue of sustainability is, you could say, relatively new. Very few universities have courses specifically dedicated to sustainability, to ESG. There are very few graduates at the moment, and you could say it's not that easy to find people that could help you, that would know the organization inside out, and could drive the sustainability effort. Another big challenge is that reporting requires high level of judgment. Even with the sustainability reporting standards that are trying to help the companies to measure their sustainability efforts, it's still highly subjective, specifically the disclosure on the qualitative information. The so-called double materiality that is the cornerstone of CSRD sustainability reporting is a new concept. It's a concept that not only us advisors are trying to embrace and understand, but it's a new concept for companies, for investors and all other involved stakeholders. Another major challenge is the data, the quality of data. Majority of the information that companies are disclosing is based on estimates, on hypothetical information, hypothetical scenarios. We are also dealing with a large number of standards that are being brought together, and companies need to really identify the most relevant standard to them, understand them, identify the key information, and report according to these standards. Companies, as we already mentioned at the panel, are still at the stages where data and the whole sustainability reporting is still a largely manual process. Very few companies has embraced the process as automated, and a majority of the work is still taking place manually. And of course, not last, but one of the most important obstacles is still the increasing cost of reporting. To hire the right people, to collect the data, to put the sustainability strategy in place, to dedicate the time and resources comes at a cost, and it's not a cheap exercise to go through. Just maybe a few steps, advise how to become ready for sustainability reporting. First, almost allocate sufficient time to establish relevant processes and collect data. It's misleading to estimate that companies will be able to collect data overnight. It takes time, it takes months, and really to refine and streamline data collection is a process that can take years. Identify the applicable sustainability disclosure and reporting requirements, because clarity as to what data to collect is essential. There is no point collecting hundreds of data if you're reporting data on what is not material for you. Delegate responsibilities across functions. Delegating data ownership to specific functions to ensure data is collected. The right data is collected, it's verified, and people know why they're doing and what they're doing. establish dedicated sustainability team for reporting. We've seen that in past sustainability functions used to sit in HR departments. Sometimes they sit in treasury departments, CFO departments, but given how complex the issue is, it's a good and a best practice to have a dedicated team that is able to keep up with all the regulation, advise the management team and the board. Build a robust documentation audit trail, including analysis, data collection, management, reviews and approvals. This is important not just for your due diligence process, but will play an increasingly important part as we go forward when sustainability reports will have to be assured. And of course, the last, digitize and automate the data collection processes as much as you can, because what is done manually is always prone to mistakes, and the less you can eliminate the human interaction when you're collecting and processing data, the better. Sustainability is a company effort. The entire C-suite has a role to play. It's not something that you can just, as a company, put down to your sustainability officer or to few people. If it's not embraced by the entire organization, it's not going to work. Because it's such a complex issue, it really requires all the relevant functions to be involved in the process when setting sustainability strategy and putting sustainability report. It starts really from board of directors that are keeping oversight. It needs to include functions like CFOs, head of tax, chief strategy officers, because it's not just about measuring data, putting a sustainability report together. It's also about embedding the sustainability strategy into your overall company strategy. And as mentioned, really, the board needs to buy in and provide oversight. If there is not support from the top, not sufficient resources will be dedicated, it will not be embraced, and it just will become another reporting burden rather than opportunity to drive long-term value. We at EY, we have conducted a survey in 2023 in terms of sustainability reporting and how companies are ready for sustainability reporting. As you can see from one of the charts, majority of the companies currently would not pass the assurance processes, which speaks about the quality of data, quality and robustness of the processes when it comes to setting sustainability strategy. And of course, when we talk about sustainability strategy, the holy grail is really to embrace sustainability to drive long-term value. Companies should really reframe their strategy, accelerate transition, put in place robust governance, and build trust with their key stakeholders. And really focus what is material, stay focused what is material for you, define priorities on material issue, dedicate resources, and conduct active dialogue with your key stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you for your keynote speech. And now I would like to welcome to the stage Mrs. Karolina Bosáková. We are gonna again switch things up a little bit. I would like to ask mohla by som poprosiť na to video a ešte odložiť pultík.
Dobrý den. Yes.
Good morning. In English, yeah.
Proběželi ho těžké chvíle společně na východní Asii a tohle byl to držitelník. Ono mi ukázalo, že udržitelná pomoc je to, co pomáhá chybí. Petra se rozhodla postavit školu a já neváhla svou přítelkyni podporovat. Když jednou začnete druhým pomáhat, už nemůžete jinak. Na celém světě bylo ale mnoho dětí, které čekala budoucnost bez naděje na vzdělání. Proto jsme založili nadační fond Happy Hearts. Dokončili jsme první školu a stavíme dál. Stavíme bezpečné školy v zemích postižených přírodními katastrofami. Happy Hearts to jsou příběhy o přátelství, o lidské soudržnosti a odvaze zachovat svět bezpečný a laskavý. A dává to smysl. Díky vzdělání si lidé, kterým pomáháme, budou moci v budoucnu pomoci sami. Nebudou tak závislí na naší další podpoře. Prostřednictvím nových škol přinášíme naději, pomáháme generacím dětí a celým komunitám. Po ničivých katastrofách je svět k postiženým komunitám solidární. Po první vlně pomoci bývají však děti z těchto oblastí dlouho zapomenuty. Jejich návrat do školy trvá často až 6 let. My jsme díky partnerství s All Hands and Hearts Smart Response a zapojení dobrovolníků z celého světa schopni dokončit školu za 6 měsíců. Od naší první školy jsme ušli dlouhou cestu. Teď díky pomoci přátel a partnerů oslavujeme otevření škol v zemích na celém světě. Ale stále je příliš mnoho dětí, které na svůj návrat do školy teprve čekají. Všechny děti jsou pro nás dospělé nekonečnou inspirací. Ty naše české s námi už dávno pomáhají díky projektu 2 roky prázdnin. Jsou to naše malí hrdinové. Každé dítě má právo na vzdělání a s vaší pomocí a podporou můžeme vytvořit svět, ve kterém budou moci všechny děti chodit do bezpečných škol. Pomozme společně dětem žít bezpečnější, šťastnější a lepší život.
Thank you. So as we've seen in the video, I'll just repeat it very quickly. Carolina is the CEO since 2017 of the organization Happy Hearts. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Is there anything that you would like to add for the introduction? Your organization focuses on rebuilding schools, primarily in the countries that have been affected by any sort of natural disasters. Can you maybe tell us how many schools till this day you have been building or have been built?
Mm-hmm. So I have to say on the beginning that for me the impulse why I actually started to do Happy Hearts and support Petra with rebuilding schools was a personal experience that was life-changing because I was at Southeast Asia right after tsunami hit in 2004. And that is an experience that basically changed my life. And when we went 5 months after tsunami with Petra back to Thailand, we saw the communities are left without help after the first responders leave the country. They're actually left without hope for many, many months. And there was this point when we decided that we have a dream to rebuild one school in Thailand where Petra survived tsunami, and that's what we did. And until this day, we actually rebuilt 336 schools in 24 countries for 120,000 children. So what might actually start as a very small goal can end in many years, and of course consistent work and strong partnerships and a lot of dedicated people who are willing to give their volunteer time, it can become a huge global initiative with an amazing impact.
Well, congratulations, those are very tremendous numbers. And since we are in the sustainability booth, maybe let's talk about how is the sustainability connected within your work? How does it overlap, and where do you see the potential where the sustainability can take the education?
I mean, us in a kind of partnership with other organizations, because it's not only Happy Hearts Czech, but it's also All Hands and Hearts US, we are actually fulfilling 3 of the ESGs, so that is already making it very sustainable. But the reason why we are rebuilding schools, because it is the best sustainable help for the local communities, because they are, often left after natural disaster for many years. There was actually a big research how long it takes for the children to go back to schools after natural disaster, and it often takes up to 6 years, which means the whole generation with no education, and the schools are obviously the solution to that. And through the education, we help communities only until the moment that they can help themselves. They don't usually seek for more help. They want to be able to recover after natural disaster themselves. And when you can send your kids back to school, then it's much easier for you to actually start to recover after natural disaster.
Yeah, I totally agree. I already know it, but maybe for the audience, could you please share some success stories within the realm of sustainability? Because I know you are also, you go to the country affected by the natural disaster, you build the school, and then you basically leave. But that's not the end of the journey of the local community. So can you please?
Yes, exactly. That is important to say, we are volunteer-powered organization, so it's not only about the money that we can raise to rebuild the schools, but we also have a very strong volunteer program. So thanks to this volunteer program, we're very effective in rebuilding schools. It takes 6 months to actually rebuild safe, resilient school for the community, which is obviously shortening the time when kids can go back to school very much. And we actually, in every country where we operate and we decide to rebuild schools, we are trying to do something more for the community. So, for example, in Nepal, we started to do a women's masons program, because obviously Nepalese women, if they are not married or if they are widows, it's very hard for them to support their family financially. So during the time when we are doing the school rebuild in that community, there is a kind of program for the women to become masons, so they can support their family financially in the future.
Do they also have some kind of path, maybe to continue or to add additional courses and to become maybe, let's say, an engineers if they find some funding for the universities and later on in the...
It really depends from which community they are, but if we keep rebuilding in their region, we usually hire them as female masons for our next projects. But usually after natural disasters, the schools, they are easily accessible and they have connection to infrastructure, are rebuilt faster. We usually go to communities that are very far away, it's difficult to access them, but there are still many children that have huge desire to go to school and educate themselves. So,
yeah, thank you. And how do you decide on where to build the schools? Because there might be a time where there are several natural disasters throughout the whole world, different continents. So, what are the priorities when choosing a place?
We have a whole spectrum of rules before we actually go to the country after natural disaster to help. So we have a specialized assessment team that is hired by the All Hands and Hearts, our operational partner, who is actually kind of, choosing the right projects that we should focus on. Basically, at the moment, we have 3 recovery programs where we rebuild schools in long term, which is Nepal, Mexico, and the Philippines. And that way we have enough time for the planning, so as soon as we finish one program, we can actually start rebuilding another one.
All right, thank you. You also mentioned, or it was mentioned in the video, that you also work with the volunteers here in the Czech Republic. So what are the local projects that are somehow involved? And maybe we can go through.
This is actually a sign in a volunteer camp, because I am responsible for the European fundraising, which is obviously an important part of the whole story. But another important part is the people who are willing to dedicate their time. I believe that the time is the most valuable thing that we have in our lives, and the volunteers, they are willing to actually go and spend 3 months building school for children that really want to be back and study is a modern hero status. how do we help? We help children to education. We build schools, but we also support education in the Czech Republic. And we started a year ago in cooperation with ADRA to create a magazine that is actually kind of a learning book for children who don't speak Czech and they have to integrate into Czech schools, which was a reaction to Ukrainian crisis and a lot of refugees being here at government schools. So this is something we want to focus on also for the Czech children and for the next year, which is actually 20 years from tsunami in Southeast Asia. We're gonna celebrate an anniversary of 20 years of help. We are planning to start a project that is going to be supporting children and inspiring children in becoming philanthropists, because that is something that we can all do, and even if we help a little bit, it all adds up and it all counts.
I completely agree. So if there's anyone who would like to be involved in your projects, how they can find you, how they can gain more information or get in touch with you. Maybe they want to help financially, but maybe also institutionally.
We have a website, which is happyheartsczech.org, so you can get in touch with us there. You find my contacts online, so I'm gonna be very happy with receiving any kind of support and help, because it has been a long and beautiful journey, I have to say, for me, because I started with supporting a little bit. I became a volunteer raising funds, and now I'm co-founder and CEO of Happy Hearts Czech, and it's my full-time job. But there is so much need, there is so much more to do, because nature disasters are happening more and more often, and there are children still waiting for school since, for example, 2015 Nepal earthquake, and now there are children, that just lost school because of the earthquake last weekend. So there is huge need, and any kind of support is definitely needed and very welcome.
That's amazing. We still have a little bit of time, so I would like to ask our audience and give space to them if they have any questions for Karolina. I hope someone does. Yes.
Because there's so much need for help, how do you select the projects? What are the criteria?
It's actually a whole list of kind of rules that we have to fulfill. It has to be safe for a volunteer program. It has to be the right place. We have to know that we can fund enough funds to actually build that project. So this is something that our operational team is always analyzing very carefully, so we don't go somewhere where we realize that it's not, we are not able to help that much. But I have a friend who is part of the assessment team, and I always tell him that it must be so hard, because I experienced it myself, to be right after natural disaster at the country. I was asking him that it must be hopeless to see, for example, when you arrive to Bahamas after the hurricane, and there is, not a single house that would not be damaged. And I'm like, how can you handle it when you know that you can do just very little drop of help? And he's like, it is really important that we come to these countries, because we are actually for them the messengers of hope. When you bring people who come and volunteer and dedicate their time, it's a huge support for the community, and usually the community then, gets beautiful motivation and energy to start to recover much easier. So that is also a message for anyone who is kind of hesitating to start to help, because they think that they can do just very little. It is really important to start, because even a little bit can really make a huge difference.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also have a question, if I may. Another one. We discussed before we started the session that you have different divisions of the people who are supervising the project. Can you also explain this kind of structure and how? Because you will say it, but I can see that this is the way how to be sustainable in the long term at the moment, at the place in the country where that is.
Yes, so our operation normally operates that the team is divided into 3 groups of workers. There is 1/3, there are really specialized people who are running the operation. They are usually the employees or the contractors for our organization. There's 1/3 of people who are volunteers. And there's 1/3 of local workers, so there are local professional masons. So we also, during the rebuild of the school, we are actually giving job opportunity to the local engineers and masons.
Amazing. If there are no questions, we are right on time. I would like to thank you personally because this is something amazing, and as you said, every drop and every effort counts because it's going, and there's a pipeline of the energy and all the effort, and I think at the end there are only great things. There are like the results of the overall help.
Thank you so much, Erika. And I just want to say one last sentence that I think that if we do something good, it becomes contagious. It's something that you actually, I cannot live without helping anymore, and it's very selfish from me because it's actually giving me back more than I invested. And I think that if we leave this message and kind of spread this message, to the new generation and to our children, they are absolutely unstoppable because we tried that, and kids are amazing. They have beautiful ideas. They have the motivation. They have the power. It's to leave some kind of legacy for me is really important to kind of inspire new generation because it's going to be up to them what's going to happen with this world.
Exactly, and thus they need the education for that as well, which is like now it's like a full circle thanks to your organization. So for the audience, you can find more information at the happyhearts.cz. There are also what I've seen at the website. There are also trips that you can, as a donor, go and visit the actual place where that thing happens, and you've said that's very, very popular. So you have a chance to also engage yourself within the program.
Yes, exactly. You're all welcome.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Karolina, for very inspirational projects and all your work that you have done. And we wish you all the success and just the joy from the results and from the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much. We will continue with the program. We are right on schedule. I would like to welcome another keynote, Mrs. Michaela Stachova from the Business Leaders Forum, who will also present in a 10-minute. Welcome.
Hello. It was a great interview, so thank you very much. I want to start with a story. You all have a watch, right? And a watch started as an innovation tool and not a random one. Aaron Gurevich, a Russian historian, wrote in his book that people in around 13th or 14th century didn't invent a mechanical clock and just then started to measure time more precisely. It was actually the other way around. People at some point had the need to know the exact time, so they came up with the innovative solution. They came up with the mechanical clock. Why am I telling you this story? I want to talk about the relationship between innovations and people. Why we are so concerned about the environment, and why we are so driven to develop innovative solutions. Martin Hausenblas was asked at one conference how he sees the future of our planet. And he said, our planet will be just fine. But without people, of course, we won't be here. But our planet will be just fine. And that's the point, right? People make all the difference. People are the reason we are in trouble. People are also the reason why we want to get out of the trouble. And people are also the tool how we can get out of the trouble. Well, at least some of them. When I asked the people why your company prioritize ESG, they often tell me, we want to leave this planet habitable for future generations. So they basically do it for people, for the future people. But what about the people now? Your employees, they are people too, you know. There is a saying that you should treat your employees as you would like your employees to treat your best customers. Unfortunately, it's not always the case. Do you genuinely care about the well-being of your employees, about their values and about their fulfillment? Well, you should care, and of course, I will tell you why you should care. 86% of people think that sustainability strategy should be rather realistic than overly ambitious. It means no bullshit, they won't buy it. 82% of people think that every company should have a long-term sustainability strategy. And 81% of people want to be informed about it, about the progress. However, only 55% of people is informed about it, and just 38% of people have a say in the decision-making process. You see the gap there, right? And 91% of people also think something which I just forgot, but it's definitely very important. 91% of people thinks that employers' attractiveness is closely linked with its ESG performance. All these statistics are from our annual research conducted by Business Leaders Forum and Ipsos in the Czech Republic. When we look at the global perspective, and especially at the Generation Z, it gets really serious. Of course, most of the people want to work for a company which has a positive impact on the world. Yet many people say, we know that our company is trying to do something. 2/3 of them think it's not enough. They just want their companies to step up, and they think the CEOs and the senior leaders just don't care. Employees, however, do care, and many of them care deeply. Even in these difficult economic times, half of them would consider resigning if their company's values wouldn't align with their own values. And 1/3 said that they already did quit their job because of that. So forget the quiet quitting, we are entering an era of conscious quitting. The risks for CEOs and for the business leaders should be quite clear now. If you will ignore all of this, if you will ignore your employees' values, your company will become less attractive, less productive, less innovative, and less successful. So what you can do about it? Show greater ambition on your values and on your impact. Do better job with internal communication. Internal communication is as important as the external one. And empower your employees to help you. Employees want to be part of your mission, and their willingness to help you is a great chance for those leaders who are ready to act. If somebody is willing to quit their job because of their values and because of their need for fulfillment, it's probably someone you don't want to lose. Who do you think will drive innovations in your company? Somebody with strong need for fulfillment, or somebody who is just coming to work to collect paychecks? The fact that employees care is a gift for smart, responsible businesses. Now it's time to show that business leaders care too. So, to sum up, don't forget what is behind the innovations. It's people. People needs and people's skills, your employees. So care about your employees and use their skills to generate as many innovative solutions as possible for a better, sustainable future. Thank you for your attention.
All right. Thank you so much, Michaela. I would like to also welcome another guest, but unfortunately I'm aware that he actually... Okay, because I got an information that he won't be able to arrive. So please welcome Mr. Martin Tengler from the Bloomberg, who would share his experience and some data.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Martin, and I lead hydrogen research at Bloomberg NEF, or BNEF in short. Today, I'll be talking about opportunities in the energy transition, which we think the energy transition is one of the biggest value creation opportunities in this century. A little bit about BNEF before I begin. We are a think tank within Bloomberg, the larger company. We cover commodities, and we look at the decarbonization of the 4 sectors that will need to decarbonize as we're going to get to net zero. So that's power, transport, industry and buildings, and agriculture. We have 250 analysts around the world. One of them is myself, 19 locations. One of them is Prague, which is where I'm based. So the energy transition is we've seen a lot of investment going into the energy transition over the past decade or two, since we started in 2004 to track these numbers. The number has now increased to $1 trillion. More than $1 trillion has been invested in just 2022 into solar, wind, batteries, and electric vehicles. What's even more impressive is that for the first time in history since we started tracking this, we've seen more investments, or roughly the same number of money flowing into fossil fuels and into clean energy, which shows that clean energy really is now becoming a major source of investment. And we expect in 2023 we should see more investment in clean energy and fossil fuels. So how does this split, this $1 trillion? About half of it has gone into electric vehicles and the infrastructure needed to operate these electric vehicles. The other half has gone into clean electricity like solar and wind. We've also seen, though, investment going into less mature sectors like hydrogen and carbon capture and storage, which I'll be talking about later. They're essential in order to get to net zero for the hard-to-abate sectors that cannot electrify. So that was about the past, and now looking at the future for clean energy, we expect the additions of new solar, new wind, new batteries to keep growing. Already in 2023, more than 400 gigawatts of solar and wind should be added to the global electricity grid. So that's about 400 nuclear reactors worth of solar and wind. By 2030, that should grow up to about 1,000 gigawatts or so. So again, double between now and 2030. Now, why is that? Why are we seeing so much solar, so much wind being added? It's because solar and wind today are the cheapest sources of clean electricity, or electricity in general, on a levelized cost basis. So it's cheaper to build and operate a solar plant, a wind plant, than to build and operate a coal plant or a gas plant. So that's why all of these new investments are happening. The other part was about electric vehicles, and many people are surprised when I show this chart. More than a third of all cars sold in China today are already battery cars. In Europe, it's about 20-25%. In 3 years from today, we expect half of all cars in China to be battery cars, new cars. and about 40% of all cars in the EU should be cars that use batteries. So the growth in this sector is going to be quite fast. And why is that? It's also because these cars are getting much, much cheaper. By 2025, we expect in the European Union it's going to be cheaper to buy a car that runs on batteries than one that runs on gasoline. It's already cheaper to operate, and now it will also be cheaper to buy it. And by the end of this decade, by 2031, in India, which is a country with very, very cheap cars, on gasoline cars, it should be cheaper to buy a battery car in India as well. Now, all of this clean energy investment is not being done by governments, it's being done by companies. We track companies with exposure of their revenues to clean energy, and this number of companies is now more than 1,500, and their exposure is more than $2 trillion of revenue, and this number keeps growing. So it's really important to understand that these are the companies that have very high exposure to clean energy. I want to spend the last couple of minutes today talking about how we can get to net zero, because that's one of the big topics of the present day. How do we reach the net zero goal that the European Union has set for us, that we have agreed to achieve? I'll be presenting results from our New Energy Outlook 2022, which is a scenario exercise where we look at what it would take to get to net zero and what would happen if we just continue doing what we've been doing until now without explicitly trying to reach net zero. So the scenario, we continue to do what we've been doing until now. We call it the economic transition scenario, or ETS. Even in that scenario, we would see emissions start falling very soon, but we would not be able to reach 2 degrees of warming. We would cross that and go to about 2.6 degrees of warming based on the modeling that we've done. Net zero scenario, we've been able to achieve the net zero scenario by 2050, but not a 1.5 degree scenario as the Paris Agreement would like to reach. We haven't been able to model that. It seems like it's too late for us to get to 1.5, but we might still be able to do 1.7, 1.8 degrees of warming if we start working on that very soon. So how could we reach net zero, or what's the most optimal, efficient way of doing that? Much of it would be done using clean power and electrification, so sectors that don't use electricity today would be using more electricity. And the hardest to abate sectors that cannot electrify would use hydrogen, bioenergy, and carbon capture and storage, or CCS. Of course, all that clean power, all that electrification means that the electricity system, the power system, the grid, needs to grow quite significantly. So we would need to strengthen the grid. The grid would need to grow about 1.7 times compared to today, even if we don't reach net zero. Even in that economic transition scenario, we would need to see massive growth in the electricity grid. And for the net zero scenario, we need to see about a tripling in the size of the electricity grid to be able to accommodate for all that renewable energy to produce things like hydrogen and to charge battery vehicles, to run heat pumps, etc. So if we do not reach net zero, even if we do not reach net zero, there is going to be a lot of solar and a lot of wind. About 65% by 2050 of the power system globally, on average, we expect to be coming from solar and from wind, so that's the electricity generated. In a net zero scenario, this would not be actually that much more. It would be about 75% coming from solar and wind, which is to say we cannot actually do net zero by just running solar and wind. We need something else to compensate for the times when the sun isn't shining, when the wind isn't blowing. We call that clean backup. For the very short-term fluctuations, batteries work, but for the long duration balancing, like when the sun isn't shining very much in the winter, we would need something else, like hydrogen or carbon capture and storage, in order to get us to net zero. And each country is going to have a very, very different story. Some countries will have more wind, others will have more solar, others still are betting on nuclear, which seems to be the case also here in the Czech Republic and other EU countries like France. There's debate about the role for hydrogen. Hydrogen is a very hot topic these days. We don't expect hydrogen cars to sell very much, so I wouldn't place my bets on that. I would place my bets on battery electric. But hydrogen does have a future to play in decarbonizing industrial sectors like steel production, fertilizer production, and some segments of power generation, that long duration energy storage I've talked about. One big challenge is going to be battery metals. Batteries require a lot of lithium, and we're going to require a lot of batteries, whether we reach net zero or not, for all the cars and for the grid balancing. And already by 2040, we expect that there might be a shortage, if we are actually going to reach net zero, shortage of lithium. So that means we would need to either find new sources of lithium, or we would need to be able to extract it more efficiently, recycle it more efficiently, or find other sources of metals, other metals that are not lithium, to run the batteries. So that of course presents opportunities for places with lithium reserves, and my understanding is that here in the Czech Republic we do have some lithium reserves, and that could be a really interesting opportunity. So if we're going to do net zero, if we're going to reach net zero, we would need to see between now and 2050 an investment of about $196 trillion. So that's a lot of money. It's about 196 times more than that $1 trillion that I talked about at the beginning that was invested in 2022. Much of that will go into electric vehicles, into solar and wind, so that's a low carbon power there, and also grids. Like I've mentioned, grids will be really important. We're going to accommodate for all of that clean electricity. So let me end with this slide, which is a picture that I took about 2 months ago at a conference organized by the newspaper Hospodářské noviny called the Green Deal Summit. There the Czech Prime Minister, Petr Fiala, he said that the Czech Republic is now planning to increase its solar capacity by 10 gigawatts, wind capacity by 1.5 gigawatts, and also look at nuclear and lithium mining, which, as I've mentioned, those will be big opportunities, and it's great to see that that is going to potentially happen in this country. And the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, who spoke right after him, said that the European Union will continue to support the Czech Republic in its efforts to decarbonize and to meet this net zero goal. So it seems like this is a really good opportunity for not just Western Europe, but also here in the Czech Republic, for us to get to net zero and also make some money while we do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin, but we will continue with the discussion, at the panel discussion actually, so I would like to welcome again Jakub Škabroň and his guests. Okay. Sorry.
Hello. Maybe we switch to Czech language. Is anyone against? Like, is there only English native speaker? Raise your hand. Okay, now let's do it in English. I think English is okay. No, it's okay, but we should, as a country, we should, adapt to this. It's normally Netherlands, but not in Czech Republic. So we'll go in English, yeah. Okay. So thank you for attending this panel. Actually, I need to do some introduction of also these two guys because you met them in the presentation before, but I would like to make you understand this unique opportunity because we have a very unique session of where business and government actually meet, and it's the experts like coming from Vladislav Miko. I found you started as soil biologist, which was evident from your presentation, in 1984. Then spent his whole time of the career in government position, 20 years on Czech Ministry of Environment, 12 years Deputy Director on European Commissions. If there is a person that knows about environment, this is the person, right now the key advisor for President of Czech Republic. And also Jakub Škabroň, who actually spent a huge amount of time in energy sector, specifically, just correct me if I'm wrong, started with Accenture, then RWE, Transgas, EPH, then was in management boards of ČEPS, Czech Export Bank, Energopro, KKCG, so it's a big track record. I think we'll have a very interesting information here. Before we start, I want to start with the data. Yeah, and we will make it a bit interactive because we need to make it more live. So firstly, when we have emissions in Czech market, what do you think is the percentage of the energy sector from all the emissions in Czech Republic?
35.
35?
Yes. 30. Like 30?
30. It's very near. It's 33%. So, but very good, very good. The second to make the discussion start, we did the research 1 year ago, and we asked the people in Czech Republic, what do you think of Green Deal? Do you perceive it positively or negatively? What do you think is the percentage of people in this country who perceive Green Deal positively or slightly positive?
Should I say the percentage again? I probably would say that Czechs would say it's negative, like, I don't know, 70%?
So 30% positive, right? Okay.
I think I'm on the 30% side as well, 40%.
Okay. Maybe here, some tip?
I think it will be probably less than 30.
Okay. So, firstly, on the positive note, it was 32% of the people are positive, but the catch was when we started to ask people regarding specific parts of Green Deal, specifically like they want sustainable food chains, they want to decarbonize and then to decarbonize the factories, and also like the green energy and so on. Almost all of the people, like 90%, said yes, we want this. So they hate Green Deal, but they love the parts of the Green Deal if you don't talk about the Green Deal. So that just was kind of an interesting thing. But let's start with this topic of energy transition or clean energy revolution. Yeah. So the first question is, what comes to your mind immediately? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say clean energy revolution?
Dobrý den, ještě jednou. It's very simple. That the humankind has to understand that we need to think in the longer perspective that is our lifetime on this planet. Therefore, the kind of the fear of responsibility which has been said by both speakers earlier today, which actually I would say, Ms. Mika, your pitch today supposed to be held at every primary school in Czech Republic. I mean it. Similarly with you, everything what has been said about the net zero transition, what we have to invest is true. On the other hand, and this is key, who's gonna pay for that? From where the money comes from, and if the transition will be fast enough that we will be not facing any blackouts. And as we currently see, and it's probably now I will be starting to be a little bit more, let's say, provocative in a way. All the facts which have been said on a Bloomberg presentation today are correct. Nevertheless, year 2023, already recognizing the key fundamental footprints that is not going to happen unless the price making mechanism for setting up the electricity price will not materially change. We already recognizing in all over the planet that all renewable resources are being either pulled off from the investments or they are not meeting the investment criteria for even being built. On the other hand, the Europe specifically has recognized over the 15 years of super cheap electricity prices without any recognizing any new investments into the new sources, especially the backbone sources, which is as you could call them nukes, coal or fossil fuels power plants. This is kind of the impact. If you would like to keep it sustainable, you need to continuously keep investing. And we stopped investing into the power generation assets for 15 years in Europe as a whole, except the small parts of wind or solar, which are just generating the fraction of the power generation needed. What it means that because of the given of the renewables part in the system, which are good, and current price making system in place, that the marginal costs are actually driven by your OPEX cost of your power plants, which all the renewable power plants are zero OPEX driven, are making renewable power plants are not interested, not attractive enough for the new investments and makes the current fossil fuels not efficient to be operational. Therefore, we are hitting sort of the blind spot or blind road, which we have to solve immediately. Otherwise, no renewables will be built. We've seen that within the last 3 weeks the problems of the Siemens, of Ørsted in US. It's really like alarming. We are seeing a huge amount of the solar companies are filing for bankruptcy in Central Europe, and we need to call for the change.
What's your opinion on this?
I don't know if I will be speaking about that, but it is connected. But you asked the question, the clean energy revolution. And first which comes to my mind is, do we have a real understanding what is clean energy? The definition of clean. I am not sure that the society is really aware of what that really means. And second, and I agree here with a colleague, there is a, let's say, positioning of the energy sector and clean energy in particular in economic system. I think that we are comparing the prices. I mean, what means the revolution? Revolution means abrupt, fast and massive transformation. This is revolution, otherwise it's evolution, right? Which means it must be in short time and massive. But when we are speaking about the new energy, renewable energy, the clean energy, whatever you want, we are speaking about the prices which are at the beginning of the cycle, where you don't have the economy of scale, you don't have all other, effects. When we are speaking about the traditional or classical energy sources, we are speaking about something what already has incorporated all these benefits and which misses the real price in terms of the effects which have to be borne and paid by society because of the non-renewable energy. So we are comparing uncomparable, and for me this is the major problem in the transformation, because you are just going against the price which is set in the different bases, and then it is not really open for investment unless there is a huge subventions. But the reason is not that it is really more expensive. The reason is that we don't have all these benefits which are in the classical energy sources which we have now here. So, I mean, the first of all, what we need is to have the proper economic concept in pricing of the energy, the fossil or non-fossil or clean. And then there is a chance to get also innovation much faster, because then it will pay off. And I think this is a crucial, this is what comes to my mind always. Because otherwise we are just speaking about let's say, the ideas which seem to be great, but without a massive support of money from the public budgets, very difficult to implement.
To me, the answer to your question is in one word: opportunity. Like I said in my presentation, I see the clean energy revolution, whether we want to call it that, or evolution, or just adoption, increasing adoption of clean energy. I would be more realistic, call it that. I would call it an opportunity. We've seen a lot of companies successfully be built, and of course, as Jakub has mentioned, there are bankruptcies, there are challenges. We've seen Chinese module makers in the solar space who now dominate this sector. Many of them have gone through bankruptcies many times over. Many of them are emerging again now to produce electrolyzers equipment for say, hydrogen production. We're seeing a lot of companies producing cars, making good money on it. Of course, some will go bust, some will not. But to us, it is an opportunity, and yes, there will be costs associated. Some of these will need to be paid by the society, by users. But in the long run, the cost of battery cars, the cost of renewable energy, it's going to be cheaper than the cost of fossil fuel-based alternatives, even when we do not account for the negative impacts of those on the environment.
If I might just quickly react. I think we are not in conflict that the cost of renewable power plants or levelized cost of building renewable power plants are more expensive than the fossil fuel. That's the fact, and will become cheaper. What is the cornerstone that you need to get paid off for this investment in reasonable time? And when the price of electricity is not sufficient enough to repay the investment in a foreseeable time, number one, or it's not stable, which none of the banks would finance a project which costs €1 billion Czech crowns or €1 billion or whatever the number is, because there's not predictability of what the price is supposed to be. Or very simply, what is the case of solar, not only in Czech Republic but everywhere in Europe. When you see, when you see that the prices around the lunchtime are reaching zero when the solar is producing, and there is no solution for storage of that electricity, then there will be no investment in the solar because no one will be paid, because when you would have, how would like to depreciate your investment with the prices which are equal to zero. What is even the fact, it is the growing of the solar, and especially in countries where have much more suns in Czech Republic, for example, like in Greece, that this spot will not be just a lunchtime. This spot in 2030 will be from 9:30 up to 3:30 in the afternoon, which solar will be prices negative. As I said, if we will not change fundamentally the price-making mechanism for electricity as such, no fossil fuel power plant will be built, I mean the gas, because again, the gas power plants supposed to be run in the peak hours, and this is not financeable for the banks. Therefore, you need a kind of capacity payments to incentivize for that investment. And no renewables will be built because renewables are volatile; they are not stable over the time and over the year. And what we need to all understand, and I'm by heart very liberal, electricity as a final commodity for usage is must-have. It's not like you buying a luxury car or you buying the luxury real estate. Therefore, probably in order to keep a stability and sustainability, we need to change the price mechanism for electricity like more regulated fact than what we saw in the past.
If I may to add, I was inspired by your note on the opportunity. I think there is one element which is particularly interesting for Czech Republic or similar states, and this is that in the, let's say, ever ongoing battle for trying to get at the same level as the European West or America or whatever, which we know since 1980s. The new energy concept and sustainability is actually creating opportunity to be put on the same starting line with all the rest of the world. This is unique opportunity. I mean, we never had that, and I think that in all our efforts to reach out the level of Germany or Netherlands or UK, we will never get there, or it will go very slowly. I mean, we see that 30 years. While here we can start at the same starting moment. And I think this is already a kind of forgotten opportunity, and we are discussing about how to keep as long as possible the old way of using our energy sources, etc., which basically gives the others again the advantage to be further in the moment when we start, which is, in my view, quite stupid approach.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. To be honest, I haven't spent much time living in this country in the past 10 years, but I live here now and I do travel around, and it is quite shocking when you go to the, say, mountains in the west, and you climb up the mountain. You don't need to know which way is west and which way is east to tell where it's Germany and where it's the Czech Republic, because that's where all the windmills are. Or you go to the south of the country, to Mikulov, and have a night, climb up to the castle during the wine season, which is what we did just the other month. And my wife was saying, "Is that Austria?" So yeah, that's Austria, because that's where all the windmills are. So clearly, it appears to me from just anecdotal evidence, I actually don't know the share of wind in our country, it appears to me that we are behind. But I agree with your point on the need to create the opportunity to make money for these sources. And I think there are different ways to do that. There are very, very market-driven approaches, like they've taken in Texas, for example, where power plants make $15,000 an hour for 3 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours in a year, and that covers their entire cost for the rest of the year. Or there are other ways to do that, like what Japan does, what some European countries do, capacity markets. So you pay them to exist, they don't run for most of the year, but then when they are called on, they are ready to be there and they operate. So that's a clean backup that I was talking about in my presentation. We will absolutely need that, and I completely agree with you. And if we're going to reach net zero, we're going to need to find ways for this to be economical, because none of this is going to happen if companies cannot actually make money.
Thank you. But at the same time, one of the key forces is the technological advancement, in a way that you show the graph of price per kilowatt hour battery. Maybe to make it real, I just had a conversation this morning with a person that, maybe the BMW i3 or Nissan Leaf, the old generation of electric cars, they have a battery capacity of 25 kilowatt hour battery. Today, or the end of this year, this exact size of the battery will be in the hybrid of the Kodiaq, and Volkswagen, Passat, and so on. So the cost goes rapidly down, and it was unprecedented 10 years ago to think about these costs. So my question is how this can also shift this future of energy.
Materially, that's for sure. But batteries are solving just part of the flexibility problem. This is short-term flexibility. We need to find, and this is what Martin discussed today, we need to find the seasonal flexibility for our system, which might be covered by the green hydrogen. This is number one. Number two, all these batteries would need to substantially increase the readability of the grid system. What we are seeing abroad, Germany, Austria. In Germany there are 4 TSO. In Czech Republic we have just 1 TSO, the CHEPS. In Germany there are 4, and all 4 materially increase their capex spend because they need to connect the north where the offshore wind parks will be built to the south. And an individual one have to spend 60 billion euro by 2030. 60 billion euro by 2030 individual, so multiplied by 4. Czech TSO, which is equal to one of them, have an annual capex of 250 million euro per annum. If you multiply by 7, you see the significant difference between the capex spend. Now, pause. Last week we saw the announcement of the Czech regulator that they need to increase the part of the regulatory part of the electricity setting mechanism, price setting mechanism, and has created enormous emotion in the public and political scene. Without that, it will not make happen. Simply, let's face it. That's the reality, and we see it in the rest of the Europe. So we have the significantly uncapitalized grids in Central Europe. In Poland, just in standard households waiting 3 years for connecting the solar power plant on the rooftop of the standard household. 3 years. The equation is extremely simple. We need much more capex, and there need to be a formula how the public or private sector will be incentivized to do it. Simple as that.
One comment also to the way of thinking about these issues in our country. Here we hear the different story, but the whole point is we were used for a very long time to think about the large centralized sourcing of the energy provision. This is very difficult to achieve with the new energy in this part of the world. So it needs to be distributed, and needs to be multi-source, and this applies also for the energy storing. So I mean, there is no one answer. You cannot say, okay, we need just build battery capacity, or we need to build just the hydrogen, or we go biomethane or whatever. Actually, the answer is we need to do all of that, and without that, there is no way how to reach this capacity. Even the building, let's say, reserve sources based on gas or whatever, per se is not sufficient to cover that need. So I think this is something what needs to be really settled in our minds for the future, that you have to have the multiple, let's say, solutions for that problem. And it is, on top of it, we didn't say a word yet about the efficiency and the savings, where I still see like maybe 20% against what is now proposed to be a need within the town. So there is also a big part of energy which we probably don't need to produce if we are good in the energy efficiency.
Can you elaborate on this topic?
This is, I mean, these are the discussions which are about the, if you look on the housing, first of all, but you have also the industrial energy efficiency, which comes with the price. It was already mentioned. In the moment when the price of energy is so low that the investment will not come back, I mean, it doesn't work. In the moment when the price is a real one, then investment into savings makes much more sense to everyone. So that then it is like going much faster. And I visited many companies today which even have their green, let's say, part development, etc. And you just go to their premises and they are just losing 20-30% of energy just like that because they don't invest into that. It doesn't pay off.
So you talked, go to the next one, but you talked about the sustainable or the financing of the project, but the other part is insuring the project, which is exactly the same problem because they don't see the vision for 10 years of profits and stability and so on. This comes from your event that you created. Yeah. So can you continue on this? Like, what do you think will be the impact of technological advancement in the near future?
The technological advancement for solar, for wind, for batteries, I think we're probably going to see something much more gradual rather than a revolution. That's how it has been with solar, that's how it has been with wind. If you look at the efficiency of solar panels, it has been growing very, very gradually. The technology has been improving from multicrystalline to monocrystalline. We're now maybe 22-23% efficient solar panels, which is great. We could probably get to 25, 26. But I don't think we're going to see a massive jump or revolution in the way that we generate solar electricity. The same goes for wind. The wind turbines, they keep getting more efficient. Why? Because we keep building them taller and taller and taller and taller, so they get to access much better wind resources higher in the atmosphere, where there is much interference from other objects. That increases their capacity factor, means they can generate more power. Batteries, the same thing. There are gradual improvements in batteries. You might see some revolutionary technology, solid-state batteries, for example, come around. But overall, I would say the story is much more about gradual improvement and hoping for a massive jump, like nuclear fusion or some other technology that might just save the day. But in the meantime, we need to continue with these gradual improvements until, if and when, a jump that really changes everything comes along.
I think fusion is just a big moonshot, but then we have the small reactors, nuclear reactors, and so on. But yeah, okay, you want to react?
Just a short comment, because I think that this audience may be not aware of one interesting element of that debate, which is when we speak about the biofuels and something that I mentioned in the morning. As we heard, the efficiency of solar panels is getting up to the 30% commercially. The efficiency of photosynthesis is below 30%. So that means that from the same area, by using these modern solar panels, you can gain more energy than by planting whatever kind of plants and using that bioenergy for the energy generation. So it is exactly on what I was seeing this morning. I mean, instead of stealing of the energy which is captured by the plants for the ecosystem, we have the technological solution which makes it better and more efficiently. Of course, it costs something. I mean, we have then the issue of recycling, etc., etc. But purely about the percentage of the energy gain, we are already there. So this is important to know.
I agree. The efficiency of photosynthesis, correct me if I'm wrong, is probably somewhere around 1% or less of the energy that. Okay, even less with visible light. So I think it's impossible to even consider that we would run our society on just biofuels or biomass. There just isn't enough. We would need, 50 planets or 10 planets to produce all that biomass to then use to run everything. So okay, yeah, but that shows how tiny an amount it must be, because we really can't run everything on biomass. There's a reason England ran out of trees 200 years ago, because they burned them all or used them for ships, and now they discovered coal, which is much more energy dense, that helped them get to the next stage of the Industrial Revolution. Now they need something else. Now they're shutting down coal and replacing that with solar, replacing that with wind and offshore wind. So on biomass, I don't think we can run anywhere near what we need. We cannot run our society on biomass, just don't have the space.
Okay, I will use for the moving up conversation a little bit, that I will recap what both of you said. I think that recycling will go along, as we develop, the technology, and I'm not afraid of any kind of the recycling issues in the future. I've been shocked when I was at the solar and battery venue at Munich earlier this year, and I spoke to one of the Chinese company. The R&D department of one of the Chinese battery producer has 20,000 employees. 20,000 employees in R&D department. This is just enormous, it's massive. You just cannot imagine that number. Who works just in R&D, right? On the situation of gradual improvement of the solar or wind, fully agree. We just need to find more spots where we can put efficiently wind and solar. And there is, especially for solar, much more the blind spots in the landscape which we can use. Of course, we are now fighting with the connectivity or statics of the buildings, but we need to find a solution for that one. And lastly, I already mentioned that, and this is related to what happened in Czech Republic last week. In Germany, the proportion of the regulatory part of the electricity price for end customers, especially for households, was much more higher than in the rest of the Europe in the past. And in the past, then the prices in Czech Republic were in total at the level 70, 80 euro. In Germany it was 300, because there was massive part of this regulatory situation. And there was a situation which actually pushed all the investments, especially in the wind, in the past in Germany, which allowed, because there was a clear setting price mechanism for wind, that these projects were allowed to be financed up to 90% from the external sources, which makes then the investment much more easier, because they see the stability, they see the jurisdiction which is very stable and risk-free. And this actually what makes it happen. We need to just accept that the price of commodity of electricity as such will go down from the current levels, but vice versa, the level of the regulatory part, which would incentivize the capacity mechanism or any kind of the feed-in tariffs or contract for difference setups, and the price of electricity will, at the end, for the end user, will keep the same.
Thank you. So maybe I just move another topic that I find interesting, and it's kind of quite complex and cold thing. So I would like to humanize it a bit. So I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I would like to know, what's your ambition for the next 15 years? What the world will look like in terms of energy-wise? Because let's say regarding circular economy, for me the ambition is that the circular economy as a term will not exist anymore, because it will be normal, and we will look at linear economy like, what the hell was this? Yeah. But this is ambition. So what is your ambition for the world in 15 years? It's a long-term game, energy sector. What is ambition, and what do you think will be realistic scenario that it will end up?
Should I start? I think that I already answered that question. My expectation in 15 years is that we will make right the economic relations in the energy sector. So you will have the externalities included, and you will have the real prices, which will narrow, let's say, the gap which is now there, and will allow for spontaneous interest into investment in the new energy sources, which can speed up, let's say, the whole process for reaching what we want to reach in 2050. I personally believe, it is quite strange maybe, but I believe that the process will be faster than we believe today. Because, first of all, the negative impacts of the change, the climate change, will be, let's say, more and more visible, so the people will be feeling more endangered and asking something to be done.
There will be a feedback loop.
I think yes, and second, the more, this is not a linear issue. In my view, this is exponential. So the more solutions you will have appearing, the more of interested groups around will rise, and it will go faster and faster. And actually, also already today, it's like 2 or 3 years after the discussion started about the batteries coalition, etc. in Europe, we already see what is the cost of inaction of the Czech Republic in that area. We now pay more price for electricity because we were neglecting the capacity development for the new energy. It could have been already now cheaper if we were not sleeping. And I think this is just to be communicated, and the people and business for sure will follow the way. So I believe that in 15 years we will be much better in terms of the renewable energies, and also the price of energy will not be that dramatically bad and high as, and is that the goal or the reality? Depends very much on the political part of the story. Because we have some ideological discussions here about that, and I would be very happy if we get it into the more, let's say, business and economic discussion rather than political.
It's actually funny when you mentioned cost of inaction, which in sense I can see in automotive industry. Tesla right now is having cheap prices and is having a margin of $5,000 per car or $10,000 per car, while German auto manufacturers, they just slept and they cannot make a margin and they cannot sell the cars. So that's the cost of inaction in reality. So, okay, thank you.
Maybe, one sentence to the previous. We did the analysis to reply to your question. We did analysis in the Ministry of Environment already in 2009 and before when I was there about the areas which are, let's say, suitable and profitable for the energy generation from solar and wind. And it was much more than we believe it is. We found, for example, and that was with the lower the wind turbines with the, let's say, it was that time it was half to 1 megawatt max, etc. And still we found like 30 some areas in the Czech Republic where there is no conflict with nature conservation, where there is suitable conditions, and it will make already that time economical sense. The other issue is the willingness of the population and the people to accept that. That's totally different, but this comes with politics.
Yeah, I hope that in 15 years' time, when my kids climb up to the mountains in the west of the country, they won't be able to tell which is Germany and which is Czech Republic, because there will be windmills on both sides, and that they will drive up to that mountain in an battery electric car. I think that's very likely that they would do that because of regulation in the European Union, but also simply because of the economics. And to me, that's really where, rather than calling it cost of inaction, I would call it an opportunity of action. If you were an early investor into Tesla, you're probably very happy right now. And the same goes for many other opportunities in the energy transition. So I would try to always emphasize those opportunities. Our CEO always says that people like to hear about opportunities. The person managing risk always sits back in the corner of the office. So it's to us, it's really about the thinking of this as an opportunity. And how do you sell an opportunity in a country where people do think that this is quite an expensive thing? You buying battery car is still expensive, especially in a country where people buy old used cars, and there aren't that many old used battery cars at this moment. To me, if we're going to sell this to our government, to get more support from our government, we need to sell it through the lens that the government can listen, which in my understanding is energy security. And that's what Mr. Mika was mentioning. If we had acted back then, maybe the energy crisis that we have right now would have impacted us nearly as much. And from that conference I went to just 2 months ago, where the Prime Minister was speaking, he was very clear that he doesn't like the Green Deal either. He's among those 70%. He didn't sign it. It was Babiš who signed it. He said that, but now we have to implement it. And the one reason I'm happy to implement it is because it helps us with energy security. So that's the lens that we need to sell it to our politicians through, at least for the moment.
Pavle, just me to add some pieces, fully sign what Martin said. But what I would be happy in 15 years, that everyone who's sitting in this room, including my kids, would start from themselves. Right? Every in every time when I open the bin on the street, I see that the people are not sorting the trash. Despite the fact that next to the general bins are all these dedicated cases for the trash. I think that we need to educate and start playing the role model to our kids, that we will start from us. And as we will not embed that kind of the behavior, that the life is not end with our lives, and there's a life after life. We will never change that.
Thank you. Maybe I'll add, I have here some numbers from research we did 2 weeks ago. Actually, it was exactly on this topic. So, just 3 things, yeah. First one is the recycling of the things, like our personal approach. There is no problem with this in Czech Republic. Like 85% of the people actually do recycling and all the thing. Now there is a complexity of the backend system which doesn't work, but that's a different part. Okay? The key part here is 2 different questions for me, and it's the question was, are you willing to pay more for sustainable energy? Yeah. So what do you think was the percentage? Yes. People that are willing. How?
In Czech Republic, 35.
30%, the same proportion that like the Green Deal.
You are closer, but it was 24%, just this, yeah. But we see a discrepancy in young people, 15 to 24, 36%, all the topics. This is a generational thing. My generation was internet, the next generation is kind of sustainability, ecology. But that is kind of depressing, but there is also a very optimistic part. And there was a question, like, are you willing to invest in energy efficient appliances or improvement in your household? What do you think was the percentage?
80.
Yeah, actually, yeah, 78%. So people are willing to make it. People are willing to make this transition as well, not just companies, but it needs to save money.
But this is actually the same question. If you ask people, are you, there are two glasses, and one glass will cost me 50 Czech crowns, and the second glass, which is either identical, will cost me 100. When you plug any kind of the device into the electricity grid, the electricity looks like the same. And if you ask the people, everyone will say, I need to save money because it costs me so much. I want cheap electricity, and sustainable electricity will cost me much more. I don't want that. On the other hand, because the sustainable or low-cost running devices would save me money, I will go for that. Therefore, what I was saying at the very beginning, we need to make a price reform how the electricity price is set up. Otherwise, we will not make it. We will not find the money for investments, and the people will not be able to afford that.
Thank you very much. So maybe while closing, if you...
And that's why we need to focus on the opportunities rather than the cost. So offering people to things that do make sense for them economically, and those that are difficult, trying to talk to government to support them through a lens that makes sense for the government as well. So that would be the security angle might work as well.
I just wanted to say one sentence, which is we also can prevent the waste, which is then preventing also the necessary energy to be generated in order to create the waste. 40% of produced food we are throwing away. For example, it costs a lot of energy. And it is about distribution, about the structure, about the logistics, and it can be done.
Best waste is no waste. Yeah. So thank you very much, and big applause for a very nice debate. Yeah, there was a question.
Yeah, how much like last month?
Well, we are over the time, and to respect other people's presentations, we would like to continue. Maybe we can have the open discussion after the whole session. Thank you so much for amazing panel, and without further ado, I would like to ask another presenter, Mrs. Markéta Benisek, to come over and share something from her experience. And I would like to ask, to put this table up there.
So my name is Markéta Benisek, and I work at a company, Holbrain Digital, which is a UK-based web design agency, and we invest a lot of our time into building a sustainable future, and I just wanted to share some insights with you today. So Holbrain Digital was established about 16, 17 years ago, and it was actually an experiment by Tom and Benita Greenwood to see whether it's possible to build a sustainable business, whether it's not an oxymoron. So our mission is to create the best websites in the world, use our business as a force for good, and help to accelerate the shift to an internet that's good for people and the planet. And I'm going to talk to you about what that means to us. So there are 3 pillars of sustainability that we've recognized over the years. Number 1, that we can work on projects with positive impact, which is referring to what the gentlemen were saying about starting from ourselves. Number 2, minimize the environmental impact of our own operations. And number 3, digital sustainability. So I'll start with the first one, positive impact projects. Over the years, we created a very strict and very detailed ethical policy in our company, which basically means that as a web agency, if we want to help our clients have great websites, that means that we are supporting their business. And if we're supporting their business as a sustainable business, we need to make sure that those businesses actually align with our own values. So we have a red list for clients, a green list for clients who are on the same mission as us. But obviously there is always a gray area where we need to investigate the individual projects a little bit more in a more detail and just decide whether it's aligned with our values or not. The second pillar is green operations, so actually starting from ourselves and seeing what kind of difference we can make and how perhaps we can influence other people. So in the words of Peter Drucker, you can't manage what you can't measure. And therefore it was really important for us to measure our own carbon footprint. And as a web design agency, it probably didn't come as a surprise that about 96% of all of our emissions come in Scope 3 emissions, which basically means indirect emissions. But it's really useful to also ignore the actual scopes and just focus on the individual line items. So as you can see here, about 26% come from digital, and a few years ago it looked completely different, and I'll talk to you about why that was. So another question that we asked ourselves was, can we support green lifestyles? Can we support our clients and our employees to live a better and more sustainable lifestyle? And actually, we realized that companies are communities. If you look up the origin of the word company, it comes from a Latin origin whereby it described merchants who used to just gather around, share stories, eat together. It was a company, it was a community. Company was a community. And I think that we kind of lost that in today's businesses. So I'll talk to you about 10 different things which are operations, policies, and kind of things that we implemented at Whole Grain to live a more sustainable lifestyle and also to become a more sustainable business. Number one is a no-fly policy. This is something that we established at Whole Grain in 2016. It is only for business travel, so obviously all of our employees can travel by plane if they wish to go on holidays or anything like that. But we really encourage slow travel. So if you're interested in reading one of those stories, you can read on our blog a story of one of my colleagues, a tech lead, Tommy Ferry, who went all the way from Brighton in the UK all the way to Athens in 3 days on slow travel. Number two is climate perks. We wanted to encourage our employees to use slow travel even in their personal lives, and therefore we created climate perks, which gave us actually quite a lot of publicity, which basically means that we're encouraging our employees to take train to their holidays, even from the UK, which is obviously an island. Excuse me. And we give people time off to make up for the extra time that they spend commuting to their holiday destinations. And we have a maximum of 2 days per year for personal travel. Number three is that we are using co-working space with renewable electricity. And also we only meet up in the office on Thursdays. Number four, flexible working. So we really encourage our employees, my colleagues, to just work from home, use whatever devices they have at home and just take advantage of non-commuting, saving some time and working from the comfort of their home. This really helped us during COVID because when everyone was shocked and unprepared for working from home, we were already very much used to it. Number five is renewable holidays. So we are encouraging our employees to switch to a renewable electricity tariff, and if they do so, they receive an extra day of holidays every single year. Number six is veggie food policy. So this may seem a bit strict, but we realize that obviously from food there's a huge carbon footprint that we can actually save if we choose to implement some meat-free days in our diet. And so as a business, we decided that we will implement a veggie policy, meaning that every single time we go out as a business, we only have vegetarian or vegan food. Number seven is refurbished tech. We only give our employees laptops that are refurbished. Therefore, we are saving the energy and electricity and carbon footprint from the manufacturing of newer devices, and we're also trying to not buy new devices as often as in our companies. Number 8 is electric car scheme, which we're using Octopus EV, which is a UK-based renewable energy provider, and that allows us to lease an electric car through their kind of platform, and it also allows employees to save on tax. Number 9 is bike hire. We pay for bike hire in London and in other UK cities, obviously because it's a UK-based company. But I think, living in Prague now, I think that there's a huge potential to implement a similar policy in various Czech businesses. And number 10 is a non-violent activism support. This is one of the latest policies that we implemented, which means that if our employees feel very strongly about certain things that are happening in the world and they want to actively participate in protests, they can do that, and they will take paid time off to actually engage in those protests. They have security of employment and they have limited financial support in case they get into any trouble, but obviously one of the very strict conditions is that it needs to stay non-violent. Another thing that we do is that we, as a business, we share all of our sustainable actions on Do Nation, where we kind of log all of the pledges and all of the actions. And as a team, we logged over 200 team pledges, and we saved almost 12 tons of CO2. And number 3 is digital sustainability. This may be a very new topic to some of you, but in simple terms, everything that we do online is data, and data need electricity, and electricity, because the vast majority of electricity is still generated by burning fossil fuels. Every single action that we do online has a small carbon footprint. Every single email we send out, every tweet, every like, everything that we do online has a small carbon footprint, and it really quickly adds up. So this wasn't always obvious to us. We only found out when we were going through the B Corp assessment in 2016. And one of the questions in that assessment was, what is the environmental impact of the products that you manufacture? And as a web design agency, we naturally assumed that it was zero. It's digital, it must be zero. But then it got us thinking. And that led us on a journey where we actually found out that the internet has huge emissions. So currently, to put some numbers behind this, the internet currently generates between 2 and 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which may not sound like a lot. But when you compare that to, for example, the annual footprint of the entire UK or the global aviation industry, you can see that the impact is pretty significant, and it continues to rise every single year, because every single year we have more and more internet users and more internet connected devices. So if the internet was a country, it would be the 4th largest polluter in the world, similar to Russia, right after China, USA, and India. It really is quite significant. So we are on a mission to make digital emissions visible, and that's why we created website Carbon Calculator. You can look it up on website carbon.com, and you can actually, in that little white box, you can add your website, the URL of your website, and simply see and calculate the emission of your web page, of your website. We also, the co-founder of Whole Brain Digital, also wrote a book, Sustainable Web Design, which is very easy to understand and very easy to read, despite the topic, the complexity of the topic. So if you're interested in this, I strongly encourage you to sign up to our Curious to Green newsletter, which talks about all things digital sustainability. We publish that monthly. There's also an Oxymoron newsletter on Substack, which is written by the co-founder Tom Greenwood, and he talks about sustainable business practices there. I already mentioned his book, and you're also more than welcome to follow us on LinkedIn, where we share other tips. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, and I will go actually back, as a couple people wanted to take a picture of the website, so... But thank you so much. It was a very, I would say from my point of view, very humbling presentation, because now I need to think about all the steps that I can do differently in my daily life.
Yeah, maybe we already talked about another presentation on this topic specifically.
Exactly. So without further ado, I would like to invite our second to last guest, Mr. Pavel Olček, to come to the stage. He will be talking about another very important topic in the PR realm.
Yes. Hello guys, so it's a very close circle of the audience. Well, the presentation is over here, wonderful. So I have like 10 minutes, and the idea I want to share with you is that it really does not need to be, let's say, a tough topic to communicate about or on sustainability. To tell something about me, since 5 years I'm chairman of the executive board of PR Club, which now has more than 300 members and almost 40 companies which really want to have a good reputation and who are experts on communication. And this presentation will be on how to use sustainability for good reputation management. So to the right, yes?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Well, I'm also the member of Governmental Council on Sustainable Development, and just to remind that there is a key document of our state, which is about 140 pages, and you can find it at the website of the Ministry of Environment, and everywhere there is described what the sustainability and the strategy for sustainability of the Czech Republic looks like. I really recommend it to you because there are all the parts of strategy focus on people and society, model of economics, how to really support companies, how to work in companies, how to focus on. And that's really necessary not only to talk about carbon path, about other environmental measurements, etc., but to focus really also on public services. How municipalities and state is good for people, how it serves them, how companies can mitigate the issues of their employees, how can they pay them well, how can they organize the conditions for them to have better life. All this is sustainability. And here on this slide there is the research of Ipsos research agency, which shows how companies usually approach to their sustainability issues. And I'm sorry, I will put it a bit on side. And it shows quite well that usually it pays off to be authentic. So for example, the car maker focuses on environment and some social, some values of the society. The tobacco producers focus on health and crimes, etc. And so really it's necessary to be authentic. Here are the preferences of states around us, like Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and Austria. And you can see in person, these are, I guess, 1 or 2 years, 1 year old data, that really the main focus of population in these 4 countries is on employees, that really companies should invest into their people. Next parts are on sustainability, and you can see that the differences are on the bottom line. I will change the slide now, so someone who wants to catch it has the last chance. And here these data are 2 years old, and it really shows that if you look at these examples of most outlined topics, so most of them are from the E pillar. And let's say the social and governance pillar came on the stage, let's say, during last 1.5 years. So this 2 years old data showed key focus on environment. And here is, when you count on how to sell your products and services, how really people are open to pay something extra for sustainable products and services, but unfortunately they want to pay only maximum 10% premium price on what they compare with standard product. So it's really also a big challenge, because there is the willingness to use the sustainable products, but completely no willingness, no openness to pay for it. This slide literally shows that companies have a bit different pictures and focus than their customers, and there is a bit smaller part when there is, let's say, the space where the expectations are meeting. This slide is from the Změna k lepšímu, change to better activity, and from my point of view, because I'm usually keen on communication, reputation management, is this part. When you look at this, This is the data from fourth quarter of last year. The new data will be published, I guess, maybe tomorrow. It will be these days. So the brand reputation is the main driver for companies. 2/3 of companies say that the main driver for them to support the sustainable activities is brand reputation. But when you look at here, down, so only 23, so not even 1/4 of people who are working for companies say that companies manage it really properly to communicate to their employees. It's quite strange. And even 13% are able to communicate properly outside. There will be more detail here. It is unfortunately in Czech, but these are companies to 250 employees and here above. And you can see that really the reputation is the main driver, especially by companies, by big companies, let's say. This slide tells us this is the average. These are companies, the green one, who are perceived as sustainable and their products, and here those which are not sustainable. And you can see here really the impact on their business. Sustainable products, perception of being sustainable. It means building their reputation as sustainable companies really helps companies to be positively perceived by clients. And we are at the end. Fantastic. Where are we heading? From my perspective, it's really necessary to not to focus on some, let's say, standard agenda, but to really focus on where are we heading, what is authentic for our company. Not only values, but what we are going, what we are experts on, and we can have plenty of inspiration. We do not need to invent original ideas. There are plenty of examples. As I mentioned in the beginning, that strategy of the Czech Republic, there is written almost everything. What wouldn't usually come to our minds, that it is also the part of the sustainability. And what is the most important part of all sustainable strategies, from my perspective, is again man or woman, the people, because that all changes are doing because of our lives, and everything is linked with our life standards, etc. And I'm at the end. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much. Probably, all right.
I have a question. You mentioned the status quo, how companies do not manage to communicate sustainability internally and externally, or a very low percentage. But what can be done about it? What ideas do you have to change that?
Well, it's as in reputation management or communication by every occasion, to be authentic, really authentic. Because when you communicate bullshit, it's then it's not perceived properly. Because employees, for example, know perfectly what is going on in the company, and when the senior management tells them something what is not in line, let's say, with true or what they really know and what they know from their opinion leaders within the company, they do not believe it, and therefore they are not onboarded for whatever kind of solution, including sustainable solutions. Great example of this is greenwashing, which I do not want to talk about, and let's say pretending that we are doing something. And regarding external communication, this is my personal opinion, not based on any evidence, but I strongly believe that sustainability /ESG /SDG became a phenomenon of last, let's say, 3 years. Before this, almost no one took care. I remember perfectly when I talked with one of my clients during last year, with their board and CEO, and we touched the topic sustainability and ESG, and there was nothing, completely nothing. And I had to explain them what for impact of ESG measurements and directive will be directly on their business, and that without keeping this in mind and really doing clear steps, they will not be competitive anymore. Correct?
If there are more questions, I would also like to ask you to leave it for the lunch break, because now we are going to finish the last presentation. We have a slight change in the program. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Bolček. We have a slight change, as I've mentioned, so I would like to welcome Mr. Jan Lobik, who will, from the company Greenhousey, and who will present something very interesting, which is also here in this room, but I'm not going to go ahead of you.
Thank you very much. So let me introduce myself first. My background is I was born in Prague, but spent most of my adult life in, let's say, foreign lands, in the US, last 30 years in Australia and Asia. And I came back, sort of changed with some maybe specific worldview, plus 10 years of Parkinson. So I see this is my favorite dance. And my wife doesn't like all the projects I'm starting, but this one I hope she'll eventually love. I'll tell you a little story, okay? We started renovating our house, and one of those things we did, as you do when you renovate a house, you need a new kitchen. So we went to the store called Demonstrate, and as I hate shopping, I said, yeah, I love this, the colors, beautiful, fantastic. I can't really breathe here, I need to go outside. And as I went outside, I found something what this company was sort of throwing away, and I was looking at it, and I said, gosh, that would be perfect for my little fella. I thought I'm gonna build, a little kid's house for him. And then I was thinking, okay, all my hobbies and everything I do, I'm trying to sort of eventually turn into a business. So I was thinking, okay, if I'll be making these kid houses, well, they sell for about 5,000 pounds, it's not really worth making. So I tried to upgrade it, so we went to garden houses, garden sheds, and then it eventually turned into this. So basically, Demonstrate was the beginning, basically they provided us with the main building material. Again, if we didn't save it, we most likely ended up in a landfill. So I approached a couple of other companies, as Obi, Hornbach, Siko, and others. And as I'm not afraid to ask for help, I certainly did. So they basically provide us with all the material to build it, from wood to, cement, glue. They pretty much give us everything. So we want to build units which are some 3 to 6 meters, and it can be used either home office, garden house, or man cave, or it can be sustainable living, or some chill house for families. It can be quite small, but we can put 2 of these together. It can come with a bathroom, which I'll show you later on. We try to come up with a few things which will be a little different to what competition does. And again, you see that this is firmly placed, somewhere on the ground, but we build this on some sort of carriage. so we can elevate to any place you want, and we can maybe call it a mobile home. I don't know whether you know the concept of tiny houses. So here you see our sort of unique approach to the roofing. We want to make it look more like sails. It should be, maybe white. So I don't know any poles anywhere here. So, when you have it here, you might get a bump on your head. Again, all the furniture can be made at the same time from, those pallets the companies throwing away. So basically everything we can deliver is something that will otherwise be burned or ended up in a landfill. So I'll show you a couple more pictures. With cooperation with the company Sico, they basically, of course, not the basic model, they help us, they design some of the bathrooms here, and if everything goes well, this might be in the spring catalog. And this is how it was how it started in our backyard. I put it in such a great place that nobody could get the car out of the garage. So it was, everybody loved me, huh? They still do, it's still there. But I've given it to National Museum, and they promised a month ago that it will be gone next Monday. So I hope, honey, I promise next Monday. So basically it's all made from I don't know how to call it, paper almost. These are those, whenever they deliver or they transport the big chunks of, big boards or furniture, big wardrobes, they use this to protect this, while it's delivered. And this is what's slowly coming up, getting some shape. And this is just thanking a few people who have passed away. First one was Tomáš Hanák from Demonstrate, then of course Tomáš Halán from Sico, and a couple other people. Yeah, the price from all great guys. And so, what's the future? Now we have, thanks to my partner over there, Paulina Svoboda. We have a place where we basically store and deliver as much of the building material through the winter. Have a bit of more testing and basically finalizing the layout and how the house is going to look like. And we would like to start producing this in March next year. So if anybody is interested in this, we'll be very happy for contact. If somebody needs to have a house, or if somebody's husband is in their way, please let us know. We're building man cave in the backyard. So I'll probably finish here. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much, Honza, if I may. Thank you so much. Very, very nice project, and maybe people can also talk to you about something that I already mentioned is in the room. And I'll wait for the presentation. Yeah, so actually we have come to the end of today's program. They told me to summarize the whole day or the half day into some sentences, but I would like to leave the discussion open, to be honest, because we've heard so many inspiring lectures, panels, the experts from from the environmental point of view, from the climate point of view, from moreover sustainability. I work at the higher education, and I must say we also discussed the topic of sustainability, because if the universities want to be competitive, they also need to take sustainability into consideration. However, it is very hard to navigate ourselves within the realm of sustainability, and thanks to the experts and thanks to the panels and discussions that this event provided us, we are able to make further steps and become more sustainable. This platform wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, and now I would like to invite you for the lunch that is happening already. And if you still have time, I believe 1.5 hours more, there will be panels and sessions upstairs at the Women Leadership stage. And thank you all so much. Please keep the discussion open. Please let's cooperate and make the world a better place. Thank you so much.